Hello, everyone. My name is Lindor, and I am joined today by Orion and Elsa the Queen. And the CCS Grand Finals are finally upon us. 20 teams started this spring with aspirations of being the best team the CCS has to offer. And tonight, only two remain to battle it out on the Rift one last time. It's the CCS Wednesday Conference champions, DNX, taking on the Titans of the Thursday Conference, Goldfish Gaming, in a best-of-5 series to determine who will be crowned the CCS champions. Orion, Elsa, let's get this show on the road, shall we?
It's the CCS Grand Finals, Lindor. I'm so excited to be here with Orion and you as well. First ever TriCast for the CCS. I've just been totally pumped for it all week.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the same thing. First ever TriCast for me, first ever Grand Finals for me as well. And honestly, like these two teams coming through both Wednesday and Thursday. A lot of people expected Hard Hat to be Wednesday's pick for the finals, but DNX, another solid team that basically outright stomped them in their conference finals as well. And then everyone expected Goldfish to be here out of Thursday's group.
Yeah, Goldfish, the undefeated team coming out of the Thursday conference. I think both these teams had relatively easy roads here. The one difference between these two teams and their playoff runs was those conference finals, which you talk about. Orion, DNX, in those conference finals against Hard Hat Zone, maybe struggled a little bit more than Goldfish on the other side. So how do we view, I'll send this over to Elsa first, how do we view these teams coming into this game and kind of how those conference finals skew our view of maybe each side?
Yeah, sure. So, right off the bat, I'll say I'm biased. Part of the reason that I wanted to be here tonight is make sure that Thursday gets their representation. But I actually come out with a positive view of this for Goldfish Gaming in particular. They went down 2-0 or 0-2 in the series against Horizon, and a lot of that was about the drafting, which is something that Goldfish has excelled with all split long. Honestly don't think they've been outdrafted a single game up to this point, which has been a huge part of their success. But when they did get out drafted, the positive side of that is that they showed a lot of adaptability, putting Peanut on something like the Nasus, showing that they have the potential to play on that top side a little bit more than they usually do. So that makes it a lot harder to draft against them, not knowing exactly what kind of style they are going to bring out tonight, because they're going to have saved a lot for this matchup. But then the other thing that I'll say is they really showed a lot of resilience too. I think for a lot of teams, you go down 0-2, you're tired, it's already late, and it's a daunting prospect to come back 3 games. So to be able to have the presence of mind and have the dedication and the discipline to be able to run those 3 games in the way that Goldfish did and really look progressively better over the course of them. The last one was just over a 20-minute stop. That was impressive to see, and I think that for a team that didn't lose a match this split, that is some pretty important experience for them to have.
Absolutely true. Showing that resilience in a best-of-5 series is exactly what you need to win a championship. And Goldfish Gaming hadn't really been challenged all that much heading into that series, right? That was kind of the first time that we saw them with their backs against the wall, and they were able to push through and get that W. For DNX, though, Orion, kind of talk to us a little bit about their journey here, and specifically those conference finals, which you already touched on.
Yeah, so DNX, we saw their first loss coming through in the Week 9 series against Hard Hat Zone, and we kind of felt like going into it that Hard Hat Zone was the team to beat. Unfortunately, DNX completely just crushed that idea, and the fact that the conference finals was a 3-0 sweep. And honestly, like just when casting those games with Lindor, I was like, man, Hard Hat Zone is not looking good, and DNX was looking actually really crisp and just continuously punishing every mistake that Hard Hat Zone was making at every single moment. We saw the top side of the map for DNX continuously making plays, which we've seen Panzora and Shady Gecko do all season long so far. It's the reason why Panzora was the MVP of Wednesday's group. And then on the bot half of the map, it's usually a point of criticism for this team, but they actually were able to soak up so much pressure, drawing 3 to 4 members down there every single time and hardly ever dying. Yes, they did go down in CS, but that was basically their job. They realized that the top half of the map was winning the game for them. They didn't want to be a crutch for their team. They wanted to be kind of a strong pillar for their team instead. And it actually ended up working out very well for them.
Yeah, it was a whole team effort from DNX in that conference finals. Absolutely. It did end up being a little bit easier than maybe we expected coming into that match, but I think that just shows the progression that we've seen out of this DNX squad. I think that loss against Hard Hat Zone really kind of lit a fire under them. You know, it maybe showed them some of their weaknesses, and now coming into this one, I think they're looking like a little bit of a different team. They've leveled up a little bit as a squad. And one thing that I want to talk about, Orion, you mentioned it a little bit. Panzora being the Wednesday Conference MVP. We actually have another MVP in this series. Okami taking home the Thursday MVP himself. So we'll go back to Elsa. Elsa, what is it about Okami? What is it that this player brings to their team? And why do you think they're deserving of the MVP, not just of the Thursday Conference, but maybe of the entire CCS here this spring?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, to be blunt, I think that Okami has, if you look at the stats from this split, been by far the most dominant player in his position and really in any position across the board. There's not really anyone who kind of compares to the numbers that he's been able to put up this split. A lot of people will point to the fact that Goldfish was undefeated, so it's easy to put up these sort of numbers. But with that being said, Hard Hat Zone and DNX dropped one match. And Hard Hat Zone not dropping any, so those players really not measuring up either to what Okami's being able to do is pretty impressive, especially given the improvement that we saw from last split. But the other aspect of Okami that you can't forget is this is not a player who is abusing the most OP or strong champions in the game in order to gain the advantages that he does. He is a very unique and niche champion pool. I mean, and let me say, it's an ocean. It is not a pool. He plays so many different champions. But he, with those really unique picks that he's able to play, things like the Kaisa, things like being able to bring out even the Katarina, that really can catch your opponents off guard because they don't have as much experience playing against those picks. And his knowledge of these matchups, to even add to that, against those kind of more common mid lane focused characters that we've been seeing this split means that he can really win matchups that he absolutely should not on paper, and it's just been exciting to watch all split, and I'm excited for everyone to be able to see it on stage tonight.
Absolutely. Those Wednesday fans who haven't got to see that Thursday action just yet, keep your eyes on Okami tonight. We'll maybe see something special. I want to touch on what you said there, Elsa, talking about the champion ocean that this player does have. Just off a quick count here from the regular season, Okami played 10 unique champions in 10 series here for Goldfish Gaming. So definitely has a lot of unique picks that he can take out. And it's also something to mention, a lot of these picks that he does go for are pretty attack damage heavy picks. And a lot of the reason that they're allowed to get away with that is because of Dirt in that bot lane, who likes playing some of these mages like Ziggs, like the Veigar that he's played a couple times as well, really mixing in some of that magic damage, and that allows Okami to play things like the Kiana, like the Yone, which he loves to play so much. We'll see if he gets to whip out any of those picks here tonight. But on the other side, Orion, Panzora was so dominant through the Wednesday conference. Those of you who did watch us on the Wednesday in the Wednesday League will know that. So for those Thursday fans, though, Orion, give us a little tidbit of what this player is all about and why he's going to help DNX bring home the title here tonight.
Yeah, so Panzora is definitely the player that you probably wouldn't think of as like a traditional top laner. He's not a top laner that's just going to play tanks or just kind of let the game. Like he's going to be what he needs to be in team fights. Now, this guy wants the game to be in his hands from the second the minions hit the laning phase at any stage of the game whatsoever. This guy wants to take control. He likes to play the carries. He likes to play the bruisers, and the fact that he will always basically have some form of agency in the game, even if you put this guy behind. Like we've saw multiple games where they've sent jungle and mid up to top lane like 3 or 4 times at the 5-minute mark continuously over and over again. And this guy's been able to not only soak up so much pressure for his team, but he often ends up coming out ahead of those situations just about every single time. And if you do leave him on an island, the guy just not only that, but takes control of games so well, so very often. And Lindor, I believe we're getting some ready checks in chat. I believe some bans are coming through.
We've got some ready checks, and we've got the first ban of the CCS Grand Finals about to hit the table. It's going to be the Vex taken away. Pocket pick there for DNX mid laner, who just name swapped, trying to confuse us here. It is no longer Vier, it is instead Catasol, and we're coming in hot and heavy here with some of those bans. Elsa, what are you seeing here from the Goldfish squad?
Well, first of all, you pointed out the Vex being taken away right away. I really like that by Goldfish. Not only is it the Catasol special, but also I honestly think it's the strongest mid lane pick in the game right now. The long range engage that it's able to offer is
Mhm.
huge. And looking at these other bands as well, Jarvan definitely a big pick for Shady Gecko. They know he's comfortable on that. But as we see the first pick, Vigar, coming through here, this is something that Goldfish really struggled to play against last week. It's something that is, almost 99%, I want to say, going down into the bot lane for dirt. It's not really an Okami type champion, but of course that flexibility always still remains there.
Definitely it can be flexed around, and DNX will have to respect that here. We'll see what they want to grab. It's important to note here that DNX, with the fact that Hard Hat Zone won the lock-in tournament before the season here, they do get side selection for game 1, 3, and 5 for the grand finals, so they can thank Hard Hat Zone for that one. They did select red side for game 1, so we'll see what they want to counter pick with here. So far, it is an Ashe locked in and a Misfortune Hover here. I don't think that's going to be the pick, but we'll see.
So actually, just so people know in lobby chat, that Ashe is actually a Misfortune pick. Is a bit of a misclick there, I believe,
Okay.
by DNX coming through, but that Ashe is Misfortune coming through, which Misfortune is a very powerful AD carry in her own right.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, now Misfortune has been locked in, so it looks like DNX is really trolling, and that okay, so MF is Wukong and Ashe is Misfortune.
All
Which
right.
Wukong is most likely going into a jungle or top lane position. MF coming through. Like I said, a very powerful pick, especially kind of into the Veigar. If the Veigar is going into the bot lane, MF can really punish the Veigar in a lot of sense. But yeah, so far, Goldfish kind of knows exactly what they want their composition to be very, very early.
Yeah, coming through with the Yone that we'll probably see going into the hands of Okami, and then one of Peanut's favorite champions in the Mundo here. What do these 3 picks tell you about the Goldfish Gaming squad here, Elsa? Because to me, as a Thursday newbie, admittedly, it seems like they're just going for some comfort picks here.
Yeah, so you talked about the side selection, and Goldfish did opt to be on the red side every single time last week when they had selection. So there we haven't seen them on the blue side quite as much recently. Yone is a huge pick for Okami, has shown really hard carry potential in both of the series against Horizon with it.
Mhm.
And then Dr. Mundo, not only is it one of Peanut's favorite champions, it is basically his one trick in solo queue. So
Okay.
DNX opting to leave this one open. This is something they've experimented with in scrims as well. And so it's something that they've basically decided, this is what we can give up of these core champions from the Goldfish lineup. What I will say, and I want to give it over to Orion, but is that this gives away basically everything about Goldfish Gaming in terms of how their composition is going to play out, and it does give DNX a lot of free reign with these bans.
Yeah, we are moving into the second phase of bans here. Looks like there's going to be some jungle champs taken off the board as neither side has picked those up, but there's a victor in here. Orion, obviously, we've seen Vier, or rather Catasol now time and time again with these control mages. So how do you think this one is going to work here for them?
Yeah, typically, Catasol has usually refrained to picking Vex or Ari in the situation, which Goldfish Gaming probably realized what the Ari pick was going to come through, which is why they picked the Veigar. Veigar is a pretty known champion that can like nullify what Ari wants to do. Like you can just
Okay.
kind of throw up the cage after she dashes forward, and she's just stuck there.
Mhm.
And like it's pretty hard for the champion to actually interact. Yone coming through the mid lane is obviously the Okami champion. We figured Veigar was going to the bot lane, but still, the interaction that those champions do have with each other probably I wouldn't necessarily say forced, but switched Catasol to a different control base that we're used to seeing, which is the
Mhm.
the Victor, which he's still a very prominent control mage player. He's not just a RA Vex 2 trick or anything, but I definitely like the read that they're not just willing to put him on Ari and say, hey, you know what? Like it's a tough matchup, but you're gonna play it anyways. Like I like the getting him a bit of a better matchup. Also, Victor can kind of skill check into Yone a little bit with his cube movement speed. You can actually dodge out on a lot of like Yone's like knock up or his ultimate coming through if you're quick enough. So it definitely it gives him a little bit of a better laning ability.
Mhm.
Not gonna lie, seeing DNX composition, if you saw just the first two picks, it looks very weird. Just a reminder, it is an MF and a Wukong. The Wukong can still go into the jungle, but Panzora has played a lot of Wukong,
Mm.
and I would assume Wukong is able to pressure out the Mundo early on, but they are saving that last counter pick here for Panzora, which does make a lot of sense. But without the Thresh bend, I believe Lights Genesis is a very strong Thresh player.
Yeah, Lights Genesis loves those hook champs, has played the majority of his games this split have been either Thresh or Nautilus, most prominently the Thresh. So wouldn't be surprised to see that one picked. And we did also see the Braum coming through for DNX. So a little bit of some backline safety there for them. And like you say, Orion, they might save that last pick for Panzora, or if they want to flex the Wukong around, we'll see what they want to do. Last pick here for Goldfish Gaming, they need a jungler. Elsa the Queen, what are you expecting here for Shady, or not for Shady Gecko, rather, for Goldfish Gaming?
I'm not. It's hard to say. I was going to say something that could give Mossy some agency in the early game because we don't know what's going to be going into the jungle first. Last week we saw Mossy really pushing the pace of the game in the third through fifth game. So all the ones they won, two of those games were on Talia. That was banned away this time. I like the Volibear, not necessarily a similar champion to the Talia overall, but it does bring the early gank pressure, the CC able to come in to these lanes. And as we wait to see what this last pick is here, interested to see where the Wukong ends up being flexed. Ooh.
Trundle Hover, okay, still could potentially flex to both lanes, so we'll have
Yep.
to wait for that champion select. Orion, you have something to say here?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, the Trundle is a very flexible champion along with the Wukong. Obviously, when we get into the champ select, we will know where the champion is going into it. But yeah, the Trundle is actually a pretty solid pick both into the Mundo and the
Yeah.
Volibear. The pillar can basically cause a lot of devastation, a lot of these team fights, and
Mm.
not only that, but with the pillar coming through, bullet time, the Victor's gravity well coming through, there's a lot of zoning and like zone control potential of this DNX team. And when you're looking at the overall engage of Goldfish Gaming, they basically just want to run at you, and
Yeah.
they that's if they can't get on top of you, their champions will not do any damage whatsoever, and it can be very hard to want to run through DNX's composition because I mean you don't want to face tank Victor, you don't want to
Mhm.
face tank bullet time,
Yeah.
and like you can't really get through Braum and Trundle, so that's what they're gonna have to get a lot of various, I would say, angles coming through, or like maybe a sweet Yone ulti or like a
Mhm.
thresh hook. So like, you're gonna have to land a lot of these abilities coming through, or else you're just gonna have a very hard time in a lot of these choke points.
Yeah, if that engage falls flat, the kite potential and even the re-engage potential from this DNX side can be pretty formidable here. On the other side here, Elsa, this composition for Goldfish, I mean, we already said it. It feels like comfort for all of these champions, or for all these players. Peanut on his favorite champ. Mozzie has his fair share of Volibear games. It's Thresh for Lights Genesis. Yone for Okami in the mid lane, and of course the Veigar. So how are you imagining this composition coming together for the Goldfish here in game one?
Yeah, so I think that as usual, I anticipate the jungle pressure to go exclusively over to the top half of the map, with ganking both Yone as well as potentially Mundo as well. Especially, it's going to depend, like Orion was alluding to, where this Trundle does end up going, and that's really going to depend on what DNX wants to do with this Trundle. I know I'm getting a little off topic, but I'm excited about this Trundle pick because it's something that Goldfish has been banning out consistently all season long. It just does really well against the things that Peanut plays. And so, if they want to put it in the top lane for Panzora, that's going to signal to me that they really want this kind of split push heavy strategy that Wukong can also pull off. But Wukong's going to want to get group with the team as well. And, they can swap after the select, but seeing the Wukong get locked in here kind of shows to me that they're just more going to use the Trundle as a tool of, it's a strong early game jungler. It should be able to get priority for them against a Volibear. I think, both of them are pretty scrappy back and forth, but certainly some competition there. And then also just basically ulting the Mundo in the team fights. But interesting to see where those things ended up, because that changes a lot of the way that we think about these team comps.
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, we do have to wait. There is still potential for some trades,
It's
but
true. It's true.
as it stands, it will be the Trundle in the jungle, Panzora on the Wukong, and kind of looking at this DNX composition, Orion, I feel like maybe that Wukong is kind of the odd man out, and so for Panzora to be taking that into the top side, is your read on this one that maybe it is more for that split pressure that we're used to seeing from Panzora, or is he kind of going to be that solo champion, maybe trying to dive onto the Goldfish gamers?
I wouldn't necessarily say that Wukong has like his job is to like dive into the back line. I think it's more or less just like Panzora waiting for like what Goldfish wants to do with their composition. They want to come into him, and if Panzora is able to get a multiple cyclones coming through, it's like it's the same thing that Trundle and Braum are going to look to do. It's like it's basically just kind of wouldn't necessarily say bodyguard, but it's like you can't just run through those champions while also taking the amount of damage that Victor and Misfortune will do in these team fights. So basically Panzora is just going to be a nuisance in this game, and especially like in a side lane against Peanut, you know, Panzora will be able to win out on that Mundo. Mundo's base damage is very high in the early game, but so is Wukong's, and the fact that he can actually build up a lot of resistances, so like he can potentially build up enough of that coming through, so Mundo won't be able to do too much damage in return to him. I believe his cleaver is magic damage, but I believe everything else about him is like physical, which is Wukong's passive is gaining that extra armor coming through, which, you know, I do think that, you know, this Wukong, while the champion is kind of known for getting in the back line, just causing a whole bunch of distress coming through, if he does go too deep, he's basically not going to have anyone to really follow up, because the rest of the 4 members on his team just kind of want him to be like, they want them to come into them, which is what, you know, DNX's comp wants to do. They just want to sprint in. They like it's, and also like, you know, I feel like if Wukong can get on top of Vhagar or Dirt in this game, like it's gonna be really hard for Dirt to really have anyone that can like try to protect him. Like if Mundo, Volibear, Yone, and Thresh, or sorry, probably just the first 3 are gonna want to try to get onto Victor and Misfortune.
Right, yeah. We already talked about how those dives and those engages from Goldfish Gaming do have to find their mark. There's a lot of damage and a lot of threat here on the side of DNX if they get their moment to rip that bullet time through, to get some of that Victor damage off, and maybe even combo some of these knockups and some of these ultimates as well. I'm excited to get into Game 1. I know you two are, and you fans all should be as well. We're going to wait just a short 2 minutes for the spectator delay, but Game 1, CCS Grand Finals.
Lindor, I have a big announcement, actually. I'm so sorry, but
you're not going to Kanye West me again here,
no, it's not that. It's not that kind of interruption. It's a different one. It's a pretty big. I got to make a pretty big admission. It's a public statement to everyone here at the CCS. So, you know, I'm in color casting here for since last split. And this split, you know, I've really I just haven't really been able to make it happen, you know, in terms of my color casting abilities. And you guys haven't known it. You probably thought that I'm pretty much the best color caster in the world. And I'll admit the reason why, because I've been using this thing to come up with my points about the teams that I'm casting. And it's called Pro Comps. And Pro Comps, it's the first of its kind drafting tool. It's aimed for competitive and solo queue play, and it allows the user live feedback and analysis on drafting. It gives them recommendations on the picks, the notes on the matchup, and the analysis on the enemy team's win conditions. And these features, I mean, they do allow the user, I mean, aka in this situation, me, the ability to gain an edge on their opponents and improve their drafting skills. And I didn't even pay the full price. I'm going to be honest. I used the code CCS25 and I got 25% off the first 6 months. I mean, I shouldn't laugh. Sorry. This is a serious admission, but I apologize, Lindor. I just had to get that off my chest.
It's all good. Now that you all know how to be a Smurf color caster with the code CCS25, we will be ready for Game 1 in just a short minute. So don't go anywhere. Action coming right up. We are on to the Rift for the first game of the CCS Grand Finals. My name is Lindor, here with Orion and Elsa the Queen, and oh baby, are we ready for this one?
Yeah, we had a slight delay because Elsa's computer decided to a bit of a blow up, unfortunately for him, but we do have him back. We do have our, you know, Thursday aficionado here with Color Caster. So far, it's a pretty standard, what I would say, kind of a lineup here. We definitely do have, no one's really trying to get anything cheeky started coming through, and I will say a couple of things pretty surprising for me. Well, not really surprising, but we do have Pensora with the Ignite coming through to kind of nullify a lot of the healing coming through with Peanut and all of that. Like, he just did natural healing that Grasp has and his ultimate has coming through. Shady Gecko going a little bit more of the on-hit version of Trundle with a lethal tempo. Like, just that much raw damage can definitely be a lot. And we'll have to wait and see. We do have a bit of a cheeky E start here from the Misfortune here. Definitely going to be the more of the lethality build coming through, most likely due to the Arcane Comet. But overall, so far, pretty standard start.
Yeah, and what I wanted to say, after this draft, kind of in a holistic sense, is I want to take a second.
Genesis, yeah, might be in a bit of trouble here. Not sure what he was doing there. Does have to flash away, but the concussive blows will be in. Surely this is first blood. Yes, Catasoul able to grab that one up. Lights Genesis, not sure exactly what he was doing in the river there.
Yeah, and I mean, sorry, I'm sorry, Orion. I was just going to pick it back up. I mean, I have no idea. That was just really an overreach trying to go for that late ward. And against a Braum, you just can't be that greedy at level 1. Braum just so strong with that Q. So just a simple punish, but it is emblematic of a lot of the problems that we saw with Lights Genesis in the last series for Goldfish, just being a little over aggressive, kind of getting caught out on his own. So they're definitely gonna. I hope that's not too tilting, and they don't want that to become a pattern here.
Yeah, and that's most likely just kind of a bit of what I would say a bit of a feels bad for Light Genesis. Yeah, he blew his flash, but ultimately, it did end up costing Dirt a couple of CS down here in the bot lane, but ultimately it's not a huge deal. It's only the initial first blood kill coming through will mean a lot for the kind of the grand scheme of things. But you did get the flash also off of Fahu down there in the bot lane. So if you're able to potentially punish the Misfortune early, there's like potential to kind of, I guess, kind of reprimand your mistake. But so far it looks like we have an invade for Trundle here. He's gonna potentially walk in the red, but I think Polygrap's already got that red.
He's going to be walking into the bush here. Mozzie, not sure he's actually spotted him yet. Now the sweeper will spot him, and with the DNX bot, or rather the Goldfish bot lane roaming over here, Shady Gecko is going to have to evacuate. Okami, though, going to look for a short trade there onto Catasoul, and eventually here, Mozzie will be able to get back on towards this red buff and pick that one up.
Yeah, but it does, even though there's not much picked up from Shady Gecko, it does equally delay Mozzie. He wasn't able to finish off the red buff, so we'll eventually have to go back to it here. Looks like he might be going for a gank on this side, but there is a nice ward set up there on the side of DNX, so it already is going to be the bot lane for Goldfish going a little bit behind, and this isn't super atypical. It's something that we see fairly often, especially because of it's just kind of the nature of this sort of champions that Dirt plays overall. But I will say that it is important for Dirt to get resources in this game, because the big problem for Goldfish in their 2 losses last week was they simply didn't have enough damage in the compositions that they drafted, and I'm worried that that could potentially be the case this time too. Orion touched on in the draft how, this MF and this Victor are gonna be these, strong damage scaling carries that are gonna be on the back line, and if really Okami and Dirt aren't able to shoulder the major burden of the damage, especially later in the game, those team fights are going to be really difficult for Goldfish to play out, and at a certain point they almost become unwinnable.
Yeah, we do see a bit of a ward cleared out here by Mozzie here. He's trying to get some things happening so far in the spot half of the map. He's been down here for quite a while, mostly due to the fact that Trundle was able to kind of stall out that initial red buff clear. But, other than that early first blood so far, it's been a very, what I would say, kind of a bit of just a kind of a stalemate coming through. Trundle actually ganking mid lane.
2v2 in the mid lane here, both junglers looking to join. Mozzie is going to be able to scare Shady Gecko away, so Okami will be able to just walk out of that one. But yeah, neither jungler so far able to find a window into this one. Hook is just going to go wide here on the bot side. Shady Gecko does have to be a little bit careful here, trying to run away from the bear, will be able to get out of there.
Yeah, and both junglers playing with a strong awareness of one another. Mozzie, was coming in for the counter gank, but the moment he shows on the map, and it almost seems like they expected him to, Shady Gecko backs up. They're not going to overgreed for this, and these are the mistakes that many of these Thursday teams made time and time again against Goldfish, taking those early jungle 2v2s when they didn't need to. And as I say that, Peanut, it's definitely hurting in this matchup so far topside.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the things I talked about here with this top lane matchup is the fact that Wukong has so much outright burst damage coming through with that Q coming through, the additional autos, and when you bring the ignite into the top side of the map as well, that just it means that you have to play that much more respectfully. Peanut didn't want to take too much damage in that exchange, which means he does have to TP back into that situation. Which, with the top laner not having TP up, it means he's not going to be able to show on the rest of the map for about 6 minutes. So it's probably going to be even more of an island up there for Peanut, and it looks like a lot of the power for bot lanes being transitioned into this dragon.
Zora might be looking for the all-in here. Cyclone going to be expended. Peanut doesn't have the flash. The ignite is down. He does have the ultimate, is now going to use it after the ignite goes off. The last auto won't quite be enough. Fantastically well played there by Peanut, waiting out the ignite till he pops that ultimate and is able to just barely survive. Meanwhile, though, on the other side of the map, it is going to be the first dragon going over to DNX.
Yeah, and that just shows some of the pressure that DNX does have on the map, even if Panzora isn't able to finish off the kill. At the end of the day, it is actually not that bad for Peanut, who will be able to stay there and farm that out with the ignite having been blown already by Panzora, but with your top laner all-inning and having that strong presence on the bot side as well, DNX is taking a lot of map control for themselves so far this game. I would like to see Mossy, he spent a ton of time down here bot trying to make something happen. I'd like to see him go top 2, bud.
Well, that's the flash into the Flay. Event Horizon is down. Fahu's in the baby cage, and he is now in the death chamber. Hook's going to land onto Xernean, but she'll be all right to walk on out. Finally, Goldfish find a punch back here in the bot side.
Yeah, and that was a really good play by Lice Genesis. We talked about how didn't necessarily have the flash earlier, but the flash actually did end up coming up through, but Lice Genesis is able to flash forward with a very nice Flay into all the burst damage coming through from both Mossy and Dirt to end up securing the kill onto the Fahu there. Didn't use exhaust or flash, was the amount of damage coming through there, and honestly really well done by Lice Genesis to actually set up that kill.
Yeah, it was, and those lane ganks, they look really good, and they are also very, very difficult to set up as far as understanding the vision around minions and also knowing whether or not the enemy team has placed wards in that area. But Shady Gecko looks like he is pathing around this top side, and Peanut did put a ward down, so feeling comfortable to go up, maybe a little too comfortable here.
And does spot out Shady Gecko, but he's going to be able to get into this lane. Nice pillar. The spell immune comes through, but Peanut's still going to be sanctioned off here. Lots of damage coming through from the Wukong. He wants to try and pick up the heal, but he won't be able to. Ultimate expended. Mundo still goes down. Panzora on the board.
Yeah, and that time that was actually without the ignite there coming through to stop a lot of the healing from Mundo actually coming through. Is we're seeing a bit of a what I would say a bit of a contest here for some of the Rift Herald vision by both supports here. We know that past the 8-minute mark is when that's going to spawn up, and so far it looks like just both teams just kind of want to play around with it a little bit. I would say the stronger team in this situation is probably going to end up being Goldfish here, because they have more ultimates coming through with the Glacial Storm coming through from the Volibear. But they are actually pushed out of the area due to the fact that Panzer was able to push his wave in and come down, so it's a bit of a 4 versus 3.
Yeah, Peanut is now just returning onto the map here. We'll see if either team is able to grab priority over this Rift Herald. Like you say, DNX did push Goldfish off. They now have all 4 members onto the bot side. Xernean returning to the bot side. So we'll see if now they want to retry onto this Herald.
Yeah, they are going to come back over here, trying to put a lot of priority on this. In the games that they won last week, they did dominate the Heralds as well as the Dragon, so I think that is a key to success for them. Obviously, in any game, the teams want to be able to pick up these Heralds, but I think being able to get an early gold lead and snowball, especially Okami, ideally, because that's normally just the game plan, to his first item, couple of items, is going to be really big for them here. I did want to, touch on Okami and say, right now, Catasol sitting, a little bit up in CS, also has not fallen victim to any gank so far. This is huge because Goldfish tends to heavily gank around the mid lane, and they're really successful at it also. So this safe and disciplined style of play is I think it's really the best way to play against a player like Okami and a duo like Masi and Okami in particular. So hats off to them for that. And in games where Goldfish goes into the mid to late game down in gold, that's when they start to struggle. Looking at the gold right now, we do see a bit of a lead for DNX, and that could be the case, but Shady Gecko also around the bot side, so...
Yeah, and that's one of the things I talked about with this Catastol in the mid lane. This guy is just the rock of DNX here. The guy just honestly doesn't lose lane hardly ever. He's not typically the reason why his team loses, but I would be very curious to find out if he ever was just the straight up reason why he lost. Like he usually maintains really solid CS numbers, and just like you mentioned, like Okami's the player, like he likes to skirmish, he likes to
carry on the bot side. Dirt flashed into the Braum ultimate. Now he's gonna get stunned up. Bullet time rips across and will claim him. Lights Genesis, just a sliver of HP, but will escape. Shady Gecko waiting so long in that alcove, but is rewarded for his efforts.
And now the dragon is going to spawn, so DNX already picked up the first one. This is going to give them a huge amount of priority, and I just spoke about objectives. There's more than just the Rift Herald. There's also this dragon, and that's going to be important as the second one's picked up, and Peanut's in trouble again.
Peanut is in trouble. Panzora is going to finish this one off. The flash comes through, but Peanut dies anyways. We did miss a little bit of that dragon skirmish. Mossy actually expended the ultimate Stormbringer as well as his flash to attempt the steal there. Not able to grab it. The second dragon also goes to DNX.
Yeah, and not only that, but Peanut actually got his flash blown there, like the last second coming through onto him. So definitely a very big, like what I would say, a big mistake there by Peanut. He was most likely going to die, especially with the extended range coming through with Wukong's Q, and ultimately still ended up dying for his loss. And at the same time, that bot play was kind of very similar. We saw Dirt. Dirt was actually okay from the initial Glacial Fissure, but when we saw, I think it was, he took the Lantern from Light Genesis, the actual knockup was able to come through. Yeah, I don't think it was his flash. I think it was the actual Lantern from Light Genesis. So he was initially okay, but when he ended up taking that one away, it ended up kind of screwed him over a little bit. But Herald's spot in the mid lane, so they have a lot of kills. Shady Gecko's a bit of a 1v3, I think.
Yeah, Lights Genesis is now spotted, but doesn't look like they want to go for it. No hook lands. Death Sentence is down. Lights Genesis might be looking for some damage here as Akami comes over the top. The knock-up lands. The snap back rips the soul out, and Okami is on the board. Yeah, like you say, Shady Gecko finding himself in the middle of a couple Goldfish members there, and they eat him to bits.
And these are the plays that you can't afford to make against Goldfish Gaming. Shady Gecko just getting a little bit lazy there, not accounting for where Lights Genesis was. I was just going to point out that as we get this fight into the mid lane, that Lights Genesis, normally such a heavy roaming support, has not been able to get out of lane all game, which really doesn't make sense to me against a Braum who doesn't bring that much pressure to the lane phase. So seeing him unleashed, that is how Goldfish makes plays happen around this around the mid lane with Okami and Lights Genesis getting together with that CC. So, you know, Dirt also in the spot lane. Yes, he's a little bit down. He has been though all game, and you know, didn't end up dying even when Shady Gecko came down there. So getting back to the formula is what Goldfish need to do right now if they want to stay competitive in this.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it's a very strange sight to see DNX's bot lane actually up in CS. Their bot lane is usually the one that kind of like is the one that, I wouldn't necessarily say sacrifices resources, but they don't typically gain a whole lot of leads in the bot lane itself. But they're actually up a fair amount of CS, and you know, Fahu is going to be probably the second main damage dealer. So getting this amount of gold and this much resources coming through is definitely going to be very, very good for them coming through. They're setting up a bit of a cheese down here in the bot lane, but there are multiple members down here. But Volibear actually makes his way back up closer to the mid lane here and wants to try to make it to on the mid lane onto the Catastol here. He does have flash though. He's going though.
Yeah, the stun comes through. Going to be the Stormbringer as well over the top. Okami needs to find that knockup to get involved in this one. Mozzie takes a bite out of Catastol, but it's not going to be enough to take him down. The Victor now actually gets aggressive. Okami just steps forward for no reason, completely disrespects the Victor damage, and gets taken out.
And the reason it seemed like that Okami didn't want to follow that to begin with is that he had too low of HP. He wanted to respect Catasol's damage, but then just going forward to finish off those last few minions, really disrespecting the damage. So that just is a little bit of a head scratcher for me. If he wanted to take that risk, I think they could have gone under the turret and at least picked up the 1-for-1 kill. But as it stands, that's just going to be a total freebie for Catasol, who is going to be a monster. Having finished the Luden's Echo already, upgrading these abilities on Victor as well, so gonna be able to clear the mid lane really, really easily with that laser, whereas for Goldfish, Dirt has a little bit of wave clear with the Vigar, but other than that, Okami can kill the minions, but has to get really close to them, so this is gonna start to become a little bit of a concern. As this Victor will continue to just post up in the mid lane or in the side lanes really, and just indefinitely clear out those minion waves.
Yeah, and we've got this dragon spawning up here in about 40 seconds as well, and we've already seen 2 dragons already picked up here if you are the side of DNX here in this one. And we talked about the composition that DNX has, where like as long as they're there in a situation first, they can post up in any situation, and it's very hard for Goldfish to just want to walk through, because there's like you have to walk through Trundle Pillar, Glacial Fissure, a Gravity Well, even Cyclone of Wukong. Like there's so many tools, and you also have bullet time and just all of Victor's damage coming through. And when you're already down 2k gold and you have to try to stop this, what I would say a snowball effect of a dragon coming through, the situation can be very hard. They already have multiple members down here. 4 members are trying to get into the area, trying to get the mid push as well with Okami, but this might be this is going to be pretty rough for Goldfish, I would say.
Catasol still in the mid lane. He's trying to look to join his team. Has to be careful the route he takes here, though. Mozzie and the rest of Goldfish looking to cut him off as the dragon loses patience for a moment. They're going to look for the engage. Peanut, though, has found enough safety. Both teams a little bit touch and go here as they make eye contact around the dragon area. And now here we go for the fight. That's going to be the knock-up in. Big Fate Seal. Bullet time isn't going to be enough. Peanut looking to interrupt it. He's not going to find it. Hook from Like Genesis. Okami finds 1. 2 in the death chambers. They trade 1-for-1. Okami will be the 3rd to fall, and Goldfish are on the run. Catasol grabs another. Peanut will be the next to fall as Panzora looks for more on the bot side. DNX break game 1 right open.
And Panzora looking for the final kill down onto this Vigar. Will be the shutdown, traded back, but overall it's just a huge wipe for DNX, who started off that fight actually a little bit shaky after a huge ultimate, I believe, from Okami coming through right at the beginning. So, despite that, they stay totally cool. Faho with the bullet time going all over the top of everyone, doing a ton of damage from the MF, and then, Catasol as well. So, I think for Goldfish, just what I said towards the beginning of the game, there are not enough legitimate threats in this draft for DNX to have to worry about the fight after Okami is dead. Because, yes, Vigar can do a lot of damage. It's only 18 minutes into the game, though. And also, Dirt just is constantly going to be running for the hills against Panzora, against Shady's Gecko as well, just able to chase him down. So it just really all falls on Okami's shoulders. And when he doesn't have enough to 1v9 the team fight, then that's all she wrote for Goldfish.
Yeah, and honestly, that fight initially looked pretty good for Goldfish. Like it was a little separated, I would say, as we're trying to get another fight coming through. Hook is,
will be the target. It's going to be grabbed up by Mozzie. DNX looking for a second, like they want to contest, but they'll choose not to.
Yeah, and ultimately, like I said, that fight actually looked pretty good. We saw some members were separated. Fate's Call led it on to like 4 members, I believe. But like we talked about so many times with this composition coming through, it's so hard to continue the engage coming through with all the damage and the fact that you're already down behind in gold. So not only did you lose the fight, but you lost the dragon. You put yourself further behind in gold. So next time, if you don't hit another 4 to 5 man Fate's Call, the fight's probably going to look even worse if you're Goldfish Gaming, as they do pick up the first mid lane tower here. That is going to weaken a little bit of what Victor kind of wants to do. His main job, and especially through laning phase, is just kind of protecting that tower, making sure that keeping it stabilized, because once you open up mid tower, you open up the map so much in terms of placing vision, denying vision, and actually like being able to deny certain areas of the map. So I definitely like the usage of the Retro there. Just go ahead and deny that option. But, you know, I would say like it's only a 2K gold lead here if you're DNX, but I would say Goldfish's options are looking pretty grim unless it's a pretty major throw, I would say, by DNX.
Yeah, and I think that is also illustrated in the dragon count here. Hextech Soul, or I'm sorry, is it Hextech Soul?
It is Hextech, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. It's Hextech Soul. Will be spawning in just a couple of minutes here, and that mid lane turret will be really big too for Goldfish, as you said, Orion, to control the vision specifically around that river, because that's going to be a make or break sort of objective. If they're able to pick up that buff on top of the natural advantage that their team composition kind of has, especially with these 2 scaling carries, I don't really see a way back in for Goldfish from that point forward, but we'll see. Maybe they'll be able to find some kind of fight. I think that for Goldfish, you really don't even want to fight 5v5. That's not what their comp really does well. They need to find some kind of pick prior to the dragon on one of these important members to set themselves up for success going into a team fight. They don't want to play a fair game there.
Yeah, and not only that, but the 4th dragon of the game is like, it's this infernal map, you know, coming through, and this dragon stacking coming through.
Map.
It was Hextech? Why does it say infernal for me? What the
I don't know.
heck? It's a bug.
Bugged. Yeah, it's just bugged. Yeah.
Okay, my apologies for that. But yeah, even Hextech Dragon is a very powerful, like, kind of zoning, like, ability-based dragon coming through, and a lot of the damage coming through for DNX is kind of, it's very ability-based. We can have the slow from Bullet Time, the slow from Chaos Storm, and just every single ability just causing so much, even much harder to just play out the fights coming through. And wait, what is Dirt doing?
Goodbye, Dirt. He just got one rotation popped by Catapult, but now they're looking for the turn back. Goldfish are going to look here. Catapult with the flash to get away. TP coming in from Peanut. Bullet Time to buy some time for the squad. It's going to zone Goldfish Gaming completely out of this, and that means it's just going to be a 1-for-0 pickup here for DNX. Ping's going down onto this dragon just a minute before that all-important objective does spawn.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them start up the Baron either, maybe to try to just get some pressure, but no, they are going to rotate down there. Makes a lot more sense to just try to get that vision, and I think the most important thing to note as they try to take down this mid lane turret, I think they will be able to do it, but Panzora just sitting on the bot side during that time, so this isn't even, you know, we talked about taking a fair fight. This isn't even a fair fight for DNX. They still come out hugely on top, and you know, Goldfish is the one who needs to be looking for these picks prior to the objectives. Instead it's Goldfish getting picked off with Dirt, and I don't have a good feeling about this.
DNX setting up a bit of a trap here in the jungle. They're going to look for the collapse. That's a nice pillar to split up the team. It's going to be the hook onto Exerni, and oh my goodness, here goes Okami into the back line. Does he have the damage? No, he has to come back to the soul. Peanut on the side, not going to be able to find a flank. It's still Panzora going forward. Catasol is dominating DNX. They don't even need to return to base. They just beat you down time and time again. Looking for the chase down onto Peanut. Very, very tanky. Mundo here has that ultimate ticking, is going to be able to get away, but once again, the map here belongs to DNX. Dragon Soul is available. They're going to look towards that objective.
Yeah, and this Dragon Soul is almost going to be a guarantee here coming through. It looks like Monsty's not even going to come anywhere close to this pit. He's trying to go up to the Baron, I believe, fighting. Maybe steal this Raptor camp up there, but once again, we saw another really good Okami Ultimate Fates call coming through into the backline, but it was the exhaust coming through from Fahu and also just the rest of his team peeling back for him. And once Okami goes forward and no one else goes with him, he has to back out of that situation. And then we see the return damage coming through from Panzora and Fahu with the bullet. Sorry, mostly just Catasol coming through because Fahu didn't even use bullet time in that situation, I believe. Wow. So just coming through, just being able to pop so much damage. And with this Hextech Soul picked up, you'll be able to see that chase potential from Panzora and everyone else coming through so much easier.
We haven't even seen Panzora do much of anything this game outside of the 1v1 Orion up until that fight. And, you know, finally when he does get his chance, definitely making his mark with the Cyclone coming through. And, you know, once again, we just see...
Here he goes again. Maybe Panzora is going to get his time in the limelight. No, both these guys are not going to look for that risky 1v1.
Just to finish what I was going to say, we continue to see these front-to-back scaling team fights do so well against Goldfish. They need to find an answer to this if they're going to win this series.
Yeah, and honestly, it's probably not going to be this game. I'm going to be honest with you, because we talked about just the composition differential coming through, and when you're down this much gold and this much pressure, it just makes, like, when you already are at that differential, it just makes the game that much harder to even play. So if you are, if you are Goldfish in this one, obviously, like, last week they're not really putting themselves in an awkward position, because, like, last week they went down 0-2 to Horizon, and game one they're already kind of struggling in this one. So it definitely does look like DNX has the number going forward in this one, but we've seen multiple times from Goldfish they've actually gotten really good opportunities, specifically from Okami landing a lot of Fate's Call damage, but he's really been the only one coming through that's just caused so much, like, presence and, like, in a lot of these team fights. And honestly, we talked about how Dirt was the secondary person to kind of, like, step up for his team in this game, and he definitely just hasn't shown it. In fact, it's like, kind of like recently going back up in the top lane, the guy, he just kind of walked into Victor, and Victor used 2 abilities and he died. So, so far it's been pretty rough going for him so far, but nice hook actually landing.
Ooh, lots of damage onto Shady Gecko. Panzora and Okami now in a little bit of a 1v1 here on the bot side. Looks like Goldfish are looking to this Yone to answer the split push now from Panzora, and for the side of DNX, just kind of playing things safely here through this mid game. They realize that the advantage that they have is pretty massive and maybe even nigh on surmountable with the compositions like you're talking about, Orion. So they're just looking to take resources off the map, continue to keep pressure up in the lane, squeeze out some of that vision control, and start working towards maybe a Baron take sometime in the next couple minutes.
Yeah, I think right now what they're really focused on is just getting resources onto Okami, as many as they can, by putting him in this side lane. But on top of that, at this point, Mundo is so far behind this Wukong, and especially the Wukong with the scaling damage, having completed that cleaver, that really Okami is the only one who can answer the Wukong in the side lane, and that is not where you want to be if you're Goldfish, because you want your teleport to be over in that side. Okami did take teleport too, so that does band-aid the situation a little bit for them, but still certainly less than ideal. So that lane priority with those assignments is going to continue to benefit DNX as we go later and later. And speaking of the items checking in, we do have 3.5 items about completed for Victor, 2.5 only, which is a little bit surprising for the MF, but it just, the other side just kind of pales in comparison as far as what the carries have built up so far.
Yeah, and honestly, it looks like a lot of the siege, not necessarily the siege, but the control that Goldfish has started to do here is, DNX started to do here is going to be towards this Baron. We're at the 27-minute marker, and, like we talked about with this Dragon area, the same thing applies for the Baron. There's only so many ways that you can come through if you are Goldfish here near this Baron area, and honestly, if you're looking at some of these champions coming through, none of them really scream at you and say that they can get a really good flanking opportunity. And even if you do get a flank, we have the exhaust back up, but here goes Panzora.
Speaking of flanks, Panzora using the newfangled Wukong W to get a flank. Bullet time across 3. Exerdian finds the knockup. It's going to be Light Genesis finding his screen gray. 5v4 now in the mid lane. Lots of damage coming out. Dirt's got to be careful. Flash from Panzora will finish him out. The Monkey King comes forward, and now the tower will be the target. Peanut and the rest of Goldfish can do naught but watch as DNX now will retreat, looking to grab up the Baron.
Yeah, and if Goldfish's problem is that they don't have enough damage dealers, DNX is, I guess, not their problem. I guess their solution. I don't know what to call it. Their strength is that. Thank you, Lindor, the man of words. Is that they have so much damage in the tank. Panzora there with that big engage. It looks like it totally gets shut down.
Okami, what are you doing? Why did they even want to contest this? They were 3v5, but they walk up. He has to go back, and Okami will fall. Baron buffed up now. DNX might look to continue this push. 4v5 on the map. No, they will recall it, spend up their gold. Make sure to play it safe here. This is, after all, the grand finals.
Yeah, it seemed like Okami was, I guess, just desperate, right? Like, it's game one. Ultimately, if you somehow get near the Baron, like, you can maybe make something happen. It's like a 1% chance, but it's a 1%, right? But it looks like they're trying to make a play out of Panzora. Nice cage, actually.
Yeah, nice CC, Jane. Jane, press the gameplay button. See you later, Panzora. That's going to be a nice bit of shutdown gold, but it is just the silver lining here right now for Goldfish Gaming.
Well, I mean, to be honest, though, the Elder is spawning. This is a five.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a 5v4 on the map for 35 seconds. So, like, if this is your window for Goldfish Gaming, that's probably the only window you have for the rest of the game. It's a 5v4. You actually have the ability to control the dragon. Yes, you're down massively in gold, and you still have to worry about MF and Victor. But this is your moment.
They don't clear it that fast, so they have to be a little bit. They have to be careful, though.
Looks like DNX might want to contest here. Hook's gonna go down onto Catasoul. That's gonna be the... Oh my god, MF ultimate rips through the ball and steals the Baron, and it claims some lives. Bahu presses R and they all just fall. The chase down comes through. Lights Genesis will be the last member to fall. We saw a glimmer of hope for Goldfish Gaming, but DNX, they shut the door. They're ready to take their Game 1 victory.
And DNX just looking so dominant here, taking that fight and also getting the Elder. And like you said before, Orion, with what Okami did, this is just desperation for Goldfish. They knew that their comp was outscaled. They were ready to go to game 2 if they couldn't get that steal.
Yeah, and honestly, like, if that Elder goes the way of, Goldfish there's like, you can see a theoretical world where they come out on top of that fight potentially. They probably don't end up winning the game off that one Elder, but, just being able to, I guess, bit of a momentum shift coming through. But we saw just the ability of Victor coming through, the MF coming through was just so... Once that happens, like, automatically over.
Yeah, and I do want to say, even though that did look bad for Goldfish, I think once again, just as far as the draft, there are a lot of changes that they can make. I don't think, it looks like on paper, yes, they got a lot of the champions that they like to play, but I think that they made some fundamental mistakes that hopefully they'll fix going into the next game. I think they have side selection here, so I'd imagine that they migrate over to the red side, which is what they prefer. But so that'll kind of determine exactly how they pivot, but I do expect to see some changes for them going into the game too.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly what those changes are, as we are just going to get ready for game 2 here. Give us one moment and give the teams 1 second to get ready, but game 2 will be coming up here in just a couple minutes. We'll see if DNX can take that 2-0 victory or if Goldfish Gaming can find a punchback. Welcome back, everybody, to the grand finals of the CCS Spring. My name is Lindor, once again joined by Orion and Elsa the Queen. And after DNX took home the Game 1 victory, we are primed and prepped for Game 2 of this 5-game series.
Yeah, absolutely. As the Thursday aficionado, I can't say that I'm happy with what I saw in the first game. But with that being said, I brought it up in the pregame. We've seen this before. This is a team that has gone down. They've shown that resilience and that ability to bounce back. So moving on to the red side as well, that's really generally their preferred side of the map. And it allows them to just get that last pick for Okami, or even Mossy, depending on where they want to put that counter pick. So I do like that for Goldfish in this second game.
Yeah, and in terms of DNX and what they like to do in terms of like some of their drafting coming through, being on blue side or red side, definitely they prefer the red side, but honestly, blue side, they've been very often just to pick Panzora a very comfortable top lane matchup early, and then just kind of base their matchup around there. Typically, it's been the GP that he's kind of defaulted to most if he does do that very early pick in terms of picking his top laner. But he doesn't necessarily have to do that as well. But honestly, like last game coming through, one of the things I was thinking about kind of going into this game was, my one, I would say, major criticism of DNX coming through was that their bot lane usually fell very far behind, or they just didn't necessarily have the most impact in the world. But last game, we saw Fahu and Exernia not only go up in CS and lane like plus 20, but Fahu was able to do so much work with the misfortune in that game with so much damage from bullet time, fight after fight coming through. And we definitely like to see that if you are DNX, because not only because you're going to have a very solid top side, but if your bot side can continue to win their lane and have such a strong impact as this game goes on, it's going to be up to Goldfish to definitely find an answer.
Bans have hit the table. Pretty similar bans to game one. Couple of changes here for the Goldfish side. They are going to be taking away the Wukong instead of the Vex, so that's going to be up for Catasol if he so pleases. And it looks like DNX just sticking with the same three bans here, banning away all those pocket picks that we do see coming out. And is this a real Ashe this time? Let's double check. Yeah, it looks like that is going to be the first pick Ashe for DNX.
And I was actually surprised to see that it wasn't Ashe last game, because DNX has really enjoyed taking this pick. You know, I talked about Vex and what that champion offers as far as long range engage. And I do want to just leave that open, that is still up here for DNX to take. But Ashe does the exact same thing. I think as a combination, those two champions are really, really strong. So DNX coming out with a pretty good advantage. I mean, you know, they may not take the Vex, but that is still open. And Lilia being hovered, it was banned around away in the second round last game. And between you know, during the break, we were talking about how if Goldfish wants to be able to win, Mossy needs that agency in the jungle, and Lilia does generally fit that mold.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with this kind of this Lilia idea of putting Mossy on more of like the enabling kind of carry type of champion. But a DNX, a very common composition that they like to do is they like to do this Ashe, the Nocturne, and the Vex. And they usually do pick those champions very early, which we might end up seeing on 2 and 3 here. And it's actually worked very well for this team. And not only because we saw Vex being banned game 1, mostly because a lot of champions that Okami likes to play are pretty dash based. And Vex is very, very strong into dash-based champions. She gets her passive proc, which means more fears and just overall more control of that laning phase. So, you know, if they do want to go for that kind of composition, you basically turn off the lights as Nocturne, you throw Vex ulti, you throw Ashe ulti, and it's very hard to see and react to those type of abilities coming through. And this is a composition that DNX has run many, many times.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the tried and true DNX composition. Turn out the lights and hit R, like you say, Orion. Get that engaged, try to swing on into the backline with these two divers and see what they can get done. Goldfish Gaming, though, they do have a spell shield. Okay, so maybe that's one way they can try and dissuade some of those engagements. And looks like they might also have some beefy frontline here if we do get this Dr. Mundo coming through for Peanut once again.
Yeah, we are going to see that going through, and you know, I hate to say it, but really, I'm not very happy with this pick. Based on last game, I didn't feel like Mundo brought very much as far as the team fighting aspect of things in comparison to other picks that we do think of Peanut on. Obviously, the Singed bands away, but even things like the Gragas, just offer or Ornn as well. He has played that earlier. Just offer an amount of utility that Mundo doesn't. So if he does fall behind again in the 1v1 matchup, you know, I have to imagine that Panzora has another champion in his toolbox, not called you know, Wukong or Gangplank, that can deal with it. So I guess this really, you know, just has to be Goldfish kind of believing in their player, thinking that he can turn around the matchup next time, kind of after getting the information he was able to suss out in game 1. But at the outset, I'm hesitant to praise this one.
We are moving into the second phase of bans here. Looks like DNX going to ban away Okami's Ahri. Has played that a couple times already in the regular season. Goldfish focusing some of their bans a little bit more towards the top side of the map. Not going to see the Trundle this game. Gwen as well, a potential flex pick taken off the table. And we'll see what DNX do want to limit here with their last ban. Yasuo kind of gets hard countered by Vex, so I'd be a little bit surprised to see that be the ban, but we'll see what they want to go for here. It is the Yasuo.
Yeah, so a very common support that Xernean has recently been picking up that kind of counters the idea of what DNX kind of wants to do would be the Tark pick. But instead they actually want to go more for the Alistar. They want a bit more of a, I guess, kind of put Light Genesis on the ability to kind of have that bit of engage. And to be honest, the only real engage they kind of had so far was like Lilia with her sleep coming through, or like the Sivir just saying, hey, run faster.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense. You know, Light Genesis is kind of like the playmaking support that he usually is for this team. But they don't really have a great way of stopping anything that DNX wants to do so far. And DNX has a great way of just kind of pushing their buttons and getting onto like Sivir or even Lilia and just outright killing them before they can really accomplish much in these fights. And you know, when you have a Vex or a Nocturne diving into your backline with a Morgana spell shield on them as well, like that can make things even harder. Like it's Alistar can't just headbutt them out, or Lilia can't just immediately put them to sleep
Mhm.
if as long as the Spills is on top of them. And I'm very curious what Panzora is going to bring to this top side of the map. Like we said, he is typically this carry oriented player. And even times where I said, a tanky champion would be the primarily pick here. I was actually about to say it.
Okay.
I would love to see the Ornn pick coming through. I
Mhm.
was gonna say, man, this would be a great Ornn game, but I said it like 2 weeks ago, and he picked like a random carry. I was like, all right, whatever, dude. You're just gonna style anyways. But this guy, like, I guess he just shows the adaptability of this player. Like, he's like, you know what? I don't have to play this like super like carry oriented style. I can play for my team. I know that my team is super, super good, and he's going to pick the champion that's best for his composition. So not only do you have like the turn off the lights of the Nocturne, but you have to worry about Vex ultimate, Ornn ultimate, and the Ash arrow coming through all at the same time.
Yeah.
So, a lot of Goldfish is going to have to be very on point with not only their communication, but also just the awareness of where everyone is the second Nocturne lights turn off.
Yeah, there's so much to worry about when the lights get turned out. There's monsters from DNX coming from every angle, but Goldfish have locked in Vladimir as their last pick here, so there's definitely some scaling options, I think, maybe for them, maybe a little bit more than last time, and with some of the Vladimir buffs that we did see coming through on this last patch, I think this is a champion that, in the right hands, can really cause a lot of havoc on the Rift.
So there's so much to talk about on both sides for these teams as far as the drafts, but I want to zero in on what you were just talking about, Lindor, which is this Vladimir pick for Okami. It's his most played by far in solo queue. With that being said, I believe he's sitting at about a 43% win rate right now, and it's a huge meme kind of amongst the Goldfish team how poorly he tends to do, not individually, but in solo queue with this pick, and I wonder now, if that's a little bit of a bait or what that kind of is, but that has been an ongoing joke. And he is, despite it being his most played in solo queue, so far this season, he is yet to bring it out in the CCS this split. So really interesting to see it at this moment, this really pivotal time where, the series isn't over if Goldfish loses, but going down 0-2 again is, you just don't want to take that gamble. So when it really needs to work out, Okami goes to the Vladimir, and we'll see if it's a meme or not.
Yeah, and against a team like DNX, no offense to Horizon, but DNX has been such a team that has been like really, really clean in terms of like closing out their games when they do get these kinds of leads. Like we saw last week against Hard Hat Zone. Hard Hat Zone, even with the sub coming in, we felt like that Hard Hat Zone was going to be the better team. And DNX, the second they got their leads, the second they were able just to kind of crush them out, they didn't make mistakes. They didn't really hardly ever put themselves in a position to be vulnerable in a lot of their cases. And ultimately, like we saw just how dominating this team can be. And like I talked about a little bit earlier, like DNX has a composition they've run multiple times in this CCS split alone. I would honestly say upwards of like 4 or 5 times, like in like actual play, like not even counting like any scrim practice whatsoever. So they are very comfortable in the shoes that they're in. The one difference I would say was you're not going to be able to rely on Panzora being like this guy that's going to be like a crazy carry for your team. It's ultimately going to be Shady, Catasol, and Fahu in this one. And it's going to be up to Panzora to be this like tanky, like utilization type of champion that we hardly ever see from this guy. But honestly, Ornn isn't a champion that's mechanically very hard to play. He's more of just like a team setup type of champion.
And we don't want to discount how powerful the combination of champions that DNX has been able to bring forward are, and we can talk more about that in a bit. But I do really agree with what Orion said as far as in the last game, it didn't seem like they needed Panzora to be popping off on Wukong in order for them to win. But with that being said, it was a really strong insurance policy for them in those team fights. It kind of felt like if the bullet time didn't get the job done, Panzora would be able to finish it off, or vice versa. So not kind of having that to fall back on for DNX could be a little bit more of a struggle. And I also think that it could be a little bit of an easier lane for Peanut, not having to worry about that split push element so much.
It kind of feels a little bit like a reversal of roles in this game, because it's DNX with this hard engage composition. We talk about, they all hit R, they jump into the fight, they do what they can. But for Goldfish Gaming, I mean, they've got a spell shield on Sivir, they've got a Vladimir who can go into the Bloodwell. Some of their front line here in the Alistair and the Mundo are not going to be good targets for some of this engage. So it feels like similarly to last game when Goldfish tried to engage and it fell flat, DNX could turn it around. Feels like maybe the opposite might be true here in game 2.
Yeah, and not only that, but the Mundo and the Vladimir this game, if this game is relatively even, it's going to be particularly hard to outright just potentially burst or kill them out, which is what kind of, like Vex is known as being this versatile champion, but, Sivir is going to be a very easy target in my opinion. Mossy is going to be a very easy target as long as he's not able to get his stopwatch in at times. But coming through, we're going to have to wait and see just kind of how like the composition of what DNX wants to do, because yes, they do have the R buttons. They turn off the lights and it's a little bit easier to land. But once they use those, what in the toolkit do they have left besides Ash's auto attacks?
Right.
And I think I want to let us get into this spectator delay here, but what I want to point out before we get into the actual game is Orion raises an excellent question, and it really puts the spotlight on Faho, another name change switch. It was Mori in the past, in the bot lane, who hasn't really been a star. Orion referenced that earlier, and it could be on them to end up cleaning up these team fights, and in the finals, kind of the biggest match potentially, of a player's young career so far, it's a lot of pressure on their shoulders.
It absolutely is. We're going to be loaded into game 2 shortly here. We'll see who can come out on top. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We are back onto Summoner's Rift, everybody, for game 2 of the CCS Grand Finals. It was DNX walking away with the victory in game 1, but Goldfish Gaming with side select onto their comfort side here on the red side. See if they can get something done here in game 2.
Yeah, and it's a bit of an opposite composition here, I would say, for DNX. We thought last game coming through that DNX wanted the Goldfish members to kind of run at them and use their zoning abilities and their overall AoE control that they had in a lot of these team fights to basically just deny any access that Goldfish would have into any backline and basically any fight. And when they already put themselves in such a goal disadvantage as the game went on, it just felt harder and harder to play out some of these fights accordingly for them. But this game's a little different. We have a bit more of an engaged composition coming through, a bit more ultimate-based composition. So we'll have to wait and see if this kind of different style is going to end up playing out for them. But so far, they are going to go clear out this ward here that's placed in the river. Get some XP for the solo laners. Definitely like to see that. That means you're going to get level 2 on your first wave. You can definitely use that to punish a little bit. But so far, everything's kind of pretty standard. The one thing that I would say is not exactly standard is we're going to be a bit of a lethality-based Sivir with Dark Harvest, and we're going to actually see Ghost for Mossy, so he won't actually have Flash to get out of the initial CC, but he will be able to outrun some of these abilities coming through if he does have that speed ups coming through.
Yeah, and for Dirt, this is really the typical build that we see him going for, kind of as this player that is more of a, kind of caster type bot lane player rather than these auto attack based champions. So going a little bit more towards that side. And also, I think, we talked about how there are these specific sort of carry champions for DNX in sort of those core 3 of the Nocturne and the... Ooh, as Catasol doing a lot of damage. Anyways, those core 3 damage dealers, Sivir's going to chunk them really, really hard with the Q once you get some levels going in that, once you can kind of get that tier stack. So I do actually like that into this particular team comp, but Okami's just getting absolutely bullied out here early on. Vladimir definitely more of a scaling mid laner, so it's a little bit to be expected, but probably wouldn't like to be hurting that much.
Oh, wait, watch the gank.
Mozzie coming in. Catasol is going to be the target, a little bit overextended here after putting that pressure down, but is going to flash away. Shady Gecko is now here. Double Ghost expended for the Goldfish mid jungle. Flash and Ignite there used for Catasol, but no casualties.
Yeah, honestly, Catasol's wave position is pretty rough here. We've already seen an assist ping coming down, and with Mossy basing here, that does mean that Vex is most likely just going to be able to push out this wave. Okami doesn't have nearly as much damage as you would imagine a Vladimir would have as this game progresses. But overall, there's a nice attempt by Mossy. You do use both your ghosts, but the ghost cooldown is pretty irrelevant compared to a flash disc cooldown, so you can definitely make that return once you do have that ghost back up for you if you are Mossy. But he also was able to steal away the Raptor camp as well from the Nocturne, so definitely being a lot more proactive in game 2 than he did in was in game 1.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to see from Mossy coming into this game. Last week, this is what he did on the Talia, trying to make it happen on a different AP jungler this time. And as the bot lane of DNX tries to make a play here, I did want to touch on how weak the early laning phase from Sivir Alistar is. Alistar really in general, really weak early laning phase. There will be some interesting interactions eventually as far as Alistar being able to break through the spell shield from Morgana, so that's actually pretty nice, honestly, if you're Alistar, but we'll see a fight.
Genesis looking for the headbutt pulverized combo, but it was not at the right time. Shady Gecko waiting in the wings is going to assist on the first blood, giving that one over to Fahu. Couple of summoner spells expended there, but Lights Genesis choosing to not exhaust, choosing not to flash, choosing instead just to go down.
Yeah, and honestly, that situation was I would say considered pretty rough for Lights Genesis. We saw the Morg binding coming through that just straight up whiffed, and he was like, you know what? They don't have Morg binding. I can definitely go in here, but with your jungler on the top half of the map and you not knowing exactly where Shady Gecko is, that's what I would definitely say that's definitely not a great option for Lights Genesis to go forward there, even with the Morgana banding missing, but Okami landing a lot of damage.
Okami had to tank a turret shot or two there. Catasoul doesn't quite have the damage here, but could this be a potential bait? Lots of Goldfish members looking to circulate around this mid lane. Lights Genesis and Mozzie are in the wings. No flash on Catasoul. This will surely be the kill. Flash, headbutt, pulverize. Look out, Eve. Catasoul looking to get away, but the explosion from Okami is going to grab that one up.
Yeah, so when everything is said and done, yes, Lights Genesis does donate himself down in the bot lane, but they do get the kill in the mid lane, and crucially, it meets the formula requirements of getting it on the Vladimir, who has picked up the Dark Seal as well, so really going to benefit from those stacks. And in the top lane too, you know, pivoting up to that other solo lane, in the last game we just saw Peanut not being able to showcase why this Mundo, who generally isn't a meta top laner, would be worth the pick as his sort of one-trick champion. This time he has been able to gain a little bit of an advantage over the Ornn. Yes, you know, Ornn is going to scale no matter what, but the Mundo does start to get, you know, will continue to be fairly annoying for this Ornn as far as pushing him out of the lane and denying him some of the CS that we've already seen Peanut do.
Yeah, and the grass makes a lot of sense for Panzora in the sense that he is going to be able to get multiple grass procs, but typically we see if grass wasn't chosen, I would have maybe liked to have seen unsealed spellbook coming through, because you could have potentially had a little bit more of a threat if you were to take maybe the ignite, but probably felt like he wasn't going to have the outright damage to ever put the Mundo in a potential to be outright kill with the ignite coming through. So definitely wanted grass to have a little bit better time of laning phasing against this Mundo. But, you know, I would say Ornn is definitely just the better outright scaling champion than Mundo will ever be. Yes, Mundo is basically just like this ability to still do a lot of damage, but soak up a lot of damage with his maximum dosage coming through. So we will have to wait and see which tank is able to just outright survive more of that out front damage coming through, which for Mundo's job is basically just trying to absorb the initial ultis of like Paranoia, the Shadow Dash, and even like the Crystalline Arrow. If he's able to soak up all of that damage, then Mossy and Okami and even like Dirt with the movement speed coming through with his ultimate is going to actually wreak a lot of havoc if all of that damage goes onto the Mundo.
We're going to start it up here. Not for a second there, but now they are going to head towards this bot lane here. In the mid lane, though, Okami stepping a little too far forward there. The Shadow Dash is going to miss, but the kill with the Ignite comes through. Catasoul able to equalize there in the mid lane. Bot side, though, we could have a 3v3 here. Sivir ultimate is going to get used. No ultimates available for any DNX members. The sleep could be here. Mozzie, nighty-night. DNX going to put two of them to bed. Shady Gecko will be the first to fall. Fahu on the retreat will be able to get away, but one kill here in the bot lane. 2v2, maybe looking for more. Mozzie is ignited.
There's Catasoul, though.
Sivir's got the damage. Dirt flashes forward, gonna grab that one. It's a double kill for the triple kill for the Goldfish Gaming bot lane. They clean things up bot side.
That's a huge fight for Goldfish Gaming, because otherwise the Dragon was going to go over off the back of that solo kill by Catasol, who still looks like he would like to have something to say about this, but is going to head back to the mid lane. And I have to respect Goldfish there for going for the aggressive angle. They easily could have retreated in the bot lane and probably gotten away scot-free from Catasol. Instead, they say, we're not done. We can go forward for more kills. And, you know, while Dirt isn't kind of the typical target for this gold to go on, I already mentioned how annoying this Sivir will be with the amount of chunk damage that she can put out, and you know, that's just going to come quite a bit earlier with one item already being completed there. The Eclipse is done for Dirt, so Okami's still playing really aggressive in the mid lane despite his death, but that's the way he is. You can't change him.
Yeah, and the huge difference maker for that fight in the bot lane was the fact that Shady Gecko was level 5, Fahu was level 5, but Mossy and Dirt were both level 6. They both had access to their ultimate abilities, and we talked about how, you know, with the fact the abilities that Shady Gecko and Fahu, their main objective is kind of turning out the lights, shooting all of their ultimate abilities, and landing them onto their specific targets and actually being able to, like, use them effectively. But when the enemy team has their ultimate abilities and you don't, you kind of just have to back off the fight, even though the fight initially looked pretty good. Dirt looked pretty juicy for Shady Gecko, but didn't have a great way of getting on top of the Sivir there without the paranoia.
And also, you know, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is, you know, with Shady Gecko in that fight, we still haven't, or did we see the paranoia? I'm so sorry. Did it? Did he? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He pressed it for the first time there. But what this team composition is designed to do, you know, what Nocturne Ultimate against these coordinated team fights, the reason that I could miss it, obviously, is because it's easy to coordinate against when you can have those voice combination comms, which is why Ornn is such a good complement to it. But with Panzora being forced out of lane, having to teleport back top lane, it means that he doesn't have access to the team fight. So, you know, again, kind of reaping the benefits of what Peanut's been able to do. Yes, it's not a massive lead. He doesn't have any kills to show for it, but was able to deny the presence of that Ornn, which, you know, that's what Ornn wants to do. He wants to get out of the lane, help his team with that ultimate Ornn in the team fights.
Yeah, and honestly, this game is a bit of an opposite of kind of how last game looks. You know, Shady Gecko does have paranoia down here in this bot lane, so if they wanted to go for a situation, he does kind of have that ability to get onto Dirt in this bottom lane. But you know, we saw last game how, you know, I think it was DNX was the one that was building up such an early lead, and they were able to transition that into the later stages of the game. Once again, Lice Genesis making another roam into this mid lane. But, you know, like we talked about how, like, when you get these early golden leads and you're able to build up these early dragons, you can very easily accelerate the pace of the game, or I guess in a way just dictate the pace of the game. Just from that very early gold lead, and just the amount of pressure you can have on the Dragon Pit area.
Lights Genesis in this game a lot more active than what we saw in game 1. Able to make at least a couple of roams into that mid lane, like you said there, Orion. And I think this is more how Goldfish like to operate, right? They like to have Dirt kind of just wave clearing down there in the bot side. Now that he's 3-0 on this Sivir, should feel more than comfortable. Is actually Ash Arrow going to be into the mid lane. Ooh, just barely going to miss its target there, but it seems like Goldfish maybe back to the style that they're a little bit more used to here, working with Okami, Mozzie, and Lights Genesis around this mid lane, trying to make things happen aggressively with some of the engage and this mid-game fighting that they've drafted for themselves.
And with the Vladimir this time, you know, kind of, again, opposite from last game, but they don't really need to feel that same pressure to be scaling up, or rather to win before DNX scales up, because they should have the scaling advantage in this matchup.
Oh, Okami wants this. That's going to be a heal leg down, flashes forward. Yeah, last tick. The ultimate comes through, will claim it. Sorry to cut you off there, Elsa. Everything used. Okami grabs the kill.
Yeah, not only that, but the paranoia was actually used there by Shady Gecko as well on top of that. And we kind of talk about how, like, with Nocturnes, basically ever, it's all about that paranoia first usage. Like, if you can get a lot of value out of it, all of a sudden you can kind of really get rolling. But if you just use your paranoia in a sense of, like, trying to get a sneaky kill, or trying to, like, I guess in that sense, maybe protecting Catasol there in the mid lane, that's a really rough usage for him. And all of a sudden, you know, Okami is off to the races here on this Vladimir pick. He is going to be being able to take over a lot of these fights, because when you think of, Nocturne, Vex diving onto a champion, it's diving onto a Vladimir is pretty scary if you can't just outright burst him, because he will be able to not only burst you right back, but heal up any damage that you do onto him.
And that's kind of the problem for Shady Gecko right now, right? Is that, who do you dive on? Because, yes, Sivir maybe, but, Sivir also having the spell shield for herself and probably going to have that Alistar nearby as well to keep her alive as we see the Lure Tail drop. Maybe Lilia, but you don't really want to go into her face either. But looks like we might have a fight with both junglers moving towards this lane.
Shady Gecko just wanted to get this charge off with the Rift Herald, but with the priority that Okami does have in the mid lane, as well as with Mozzie in this area, it looks like Goldfish are going to be able to prevent that from happening. They're also going to be able to grab this second dragon. Enchanted Crystal Arrow will land onto Mozzie, but no follow-up to be had. So once again, it's Goldfish with the lead. It's Goldfish with the scaling advantage, and they're just slowly and methodically moving their way through this early game.
Yeah, and not only that, but a lot of DNX's composition is very much like CC, or like in a way just like tenacity-based abilities, where like if you can build Merc Treads, you can have like just tenacity built into your champion with some of the rune choices, and we're seeing like that Ash Arrow was pretty far into Mossy, and that thing lasted right around a second. Definitely wasn't very long at all, and then that Morg Binding, which we all know Morg Binding lasts forever, but it only lasted like a second onto that Alistar. So, with all the tenacity options coming through, it's definitely looking dire and dire again, just over and over here. But we are going to get a slight pause. It looks like there's going to be a phone call for Mr. Dirt here on the side of Goldfish Gaming, but definitely a very nice turnaround here if you are Goldfish.
Mom, yeah. I'm 3-0 in the grand finals. Look at me.
No, he's a busy man. What can you say? Sometimes you just got to take a phone call in the middle of the most important League of Legends match of your life. These things happen. But, going back, we just saw a replay a moment ago of the solo kill by Okami, blowing both of the summoner spells from Catasoul, which, still about halfway on that flash of the cooldown, still yet to be up. So an opportunity to punish that one again. But it does really make me wonder, with all the jokes that I talked about surrounding this Vladimir, a lot of them were public too. It's not like this is like completely private conversations or something. It really seems to me like some kind of sandbagging here on the side of Goldfish. I mean, I do think it's like 200 or maybe it's 150 or something games on Vladimir or something. A lot of games, many more solo queue games than lots of other individuals in this game probably have all season.
Yeah, and if you're DNX, you're basically put in the shoes that you put Goldfish in game one. It's around the 15-minute mark. You're already down 3,000 gold, and in terms of like looking at the composition of DNX, yes, they have a lot of go buttons, but when your go buttons are very limited options in terms of who you can just outright kill with some of these abilities coming through, it's like it can be very, very hard to actually in a way just pilot your composition effectively coming through. And you do have some pretty decent scaling with the ornaments coming through. You definitely have like a bit, what I would say, an option coming through, but you're gonna have to stop Okami and Mossy from just basically taking this game over at some point, because if you don't, we're seeing over and over again, Okami is just walking at Catasoul, like doing half of his HP bar with just one single use of Pro Bell and a amplified Q2 coming through from the Vladimir. And this guy is like, it's like, how can Catasoul effectively lane? Because not only that, but like, even though like Catasoul can try to return the damage, but Vladimir has the pull coming through. So it's not like you can just outright fear him or outright lock him down with Shitty Gecko coming through either. So you're definitely going to have to find some options. You're going to have to find some ways to kind of slow down this Goldfish team, or else they're going to just outright stomp you out of this game.
Yeah, I think they have two dragons already. No, it's all good. Not just the gold lead, right? They're already stacking up these dragons, and so I'm starting to think here, when is it the time for DNX? Is it on this next dragon where maybe they can start to push for something? It is only Wind Soul, so I'm trying to gauge how desperate do we think this team is here in game two. Obviously, the game isn't over by any means, but it feels like they're up against the wall here already early on in this game too.
I mean, I feel like they don't want to, lose out on too many resources. But I think that kind of the point here for DNX needs to be a lot of patience and diligence as far as when you actually do want to choose to fight this Goldfish Gaming team. And by that I mean, I don't know that there's a certain item point necessarily in the game. I think pretty much from here on out, outside of the ornaments, they do get pretty hard outscaled in a lot of these areas. But what I think they can do is just look to control vision. If they are in a situation where they can expend those Nocturne and Ornn ultimates, Ash ultimate as well, to pick up even a single kill, those picks do start to add up as these bounties are starting to come in on the Sivir, the Mundo. If things keep up like this, the Vladimir will be that way as well. So really for me, it's not a specific time. It's just about having the patience and picking that time very specifically.
Well, we're still currently paused. It feels like Dirt is just kind of, dealing with, hopefully not a huge issue with the phone call. Hopefully it's not a huge problem. Hopefully he'll be able to kind of get back into the swing of things because, right now he's sitting at 3-0-0, and he actually does have basically the game I wouldn't say the game is in his hands, but the game is a lot more in control than what he had last game. Last game he had the Vhagar, he was down CS, he couldn't quite really get into a lot of the fights that we kind of we wanted him to kind of be in, to basically kind of follow up with what Okami was able to do in game one. But this game he's definitely put himself in a position to definitely be a much bigger factor. And we kind of talked about going into it, Elsa, we wanted to see Mossy more on this enabling type of champion, like more of a more damage-oriented, more carry-oriented style, because if you were just going to leave Dirt and Light Genesis to suffer down in the bot lane, to go down in CS to Fahu and Xernean, then it was going to be pretty rough if your only main damage source was going to be Okami in the mid lane. Yes, Okami is the MVP of Thursday. He is definitely performing, like he even performed game one, he's performing in game two here, but he can't just be a one-man show, and you definitely like to see Mossy and Dirt already stepping up here in game two.
And Dirt definitely enables him, not only through, the damage to, the threat he brings to the members of DNX, but also the wave clear, which was something that I think they struggled with last game, not being able to clear out those waves as the siege did come in from DNX. So this time Dirt looks like he is back, and we will be getting back into game in a moment. So we'll be able to provide a little bit more there, and glad that hopefully everything's resolved on that front. But looking forward, as we unpause, I think that Goldfish definitely would like to take down this mid lane turret as soon as they possibly can. I think that, or not as soon as they possibly can, but I think that needs to be the priority for them. Once you get Vladimir down into this side lane, I think that DNX will struggle to find an answer. Panzora is obviously, not going to have enough damage, going to just get run down that long lane. And then same with Catasol as well. We're already seeing how hard he's getting out-traded in mid, and it's just going to be worse in a longer lane, top or bot.
And we talked about, Lilia being an option in terms of, like, basically outright killing her before she's able to really do anything. Crown of the Shattered Queen basically stops that idea entirely coming through. Like, your only option now is maybe Dirt, but Dirt has the cleanse coming through. He has his ultimate coming through as well, but Panzora wants to fight.
Yeah, here we go. If the arc is the Ash Arrow went into the Mundo shield, but they're looking to go onto the jungler here. Mozzie is the target. He wants to finish off the Herald. He will do exactly that. No! It's stolen away, and now the fight will break out. Shitty Gecko's found one. DNX looking for their way back in this game, but Okami's in the middle of it all. The Vladimir ultimate. He's got the heals. He's got the damage. He's looking to turn this one around. Fahu into the fray, looking to fight this one out with Panzora. He's got the exhaust down, but it doesn't matter. It's not enough. DNX, they did grab the steal, but they'll pay for it with all 5 lives. It's a wipe from the Goldfish gamers.
And Dirt was also zoned out of a lot of that fight as well, so not able to provide damage. A good job from DNX to be able to do that, but at, the Rift Herald goes through, nice steal, but the biggest thing, of course, is Okami, and, there's that mid lane turret going down, wanting to accelerate now through these side lanes will be the Goldfish gamers. So, this Vladimir just coming up big and proving to be a problem.
Yeah, and we literally just talked about the Crown of the Shadow Queen coming built up here by Mossy, and we saw the dive attempt onto Mossy itself, but he actually survived for such a long time coming through. He was able just to soak up a lot of damage, landed pretty decent sleep, and then we saw just so much damage from Okami. We talked about like the ability to, like, once you dive into a Vladimir, yes, you can do a lot of damage to him, but he will do just as much damage to you, if not more, and will heal all the damage that you do onto him with his Hemoplay coming through. So definitely have to watch that and keep that one in mind. And like you said, that fight was basically a 4v5. I'm pretty sure Dirt did like 0 damage in that team fight whatsoever. And then Fahu, he tried to enter, but Mundo just sat on his face and said, hey, you don't do any damage to me, and I do more damage than you do.
And this is what Mundo should be doing in these fights. He wants to just be a menace, be really annoying, sit on top of these carries because, you know, and give these AD carries that good old feeling of tanks are fun to play against, you know?
Nice spell shield out of Dirt, but they're going to go for the dive anyways. It's going to be the Call of the Forge God and the Paranoia down. Lights Genesis going to be able to provide some peel. Peanut is here with the teleport. Now they're going to look for the chase down, actually. He just runs fearlessly right into the fray. Mozzie here as well has the Lilting Lullaby if they want to look for it. He's going to find just Panzora. That's going to be the target now as they go forward. The Unstoppable will be expended, but Panzora will surely fall. Now Okami looking for all 4. It's a massive Emo Plague, and he finds 2 on the backside. DNX are just going to all go down. Lights Genesis will give his life for the cause, but Goldfish, they just want to end this game as fast as possible. That's the second fight in a row that they're able to grab a 5 kills on the enemy team, and now looking to break open the base of DNX.
Yeah, Okami showing his 43% win rate Vladimir right there, flashing forward, landing so much damage onto 4 members there. And it was crazy because, like, before he did any damage, I'm pretty sure, like, 3 members or 2 members, like, instantly flashed. I think it was Catasol and Fahu. They instantly flashed away. They're like, I ain't getting near this guy at all. And all of a sudden, he just bursted both of them and just outright the fight was, and then once he was able to go in the pool, by the time he got back up from the pool, Hemoplague popped up coming through, outright killing 2 to 3 members instantly with that one ability. And we see the attempts over and over with DNX. They keep trying to get on this backline. They keep trying to get on the Dirt. But like I said, their options are so limited just because the items being built up here and just the champions that Goldfish is kind of draft for them. And also the gold differential that DNX has put themselves in.
Almost a 10,000 gold lead here as we do see Goldfish looking to grab up their Wind Soul point. Should be able to do that fairly easily here. Mozzie's going to grab that one. Okami actually just barely finishing that one off. It is DNX trading here in the top side. Rift Herald is going to charge here for the outer tower. That is going to be a little bit of some objective bounty gold into their pockets, but it's a large mountain to climb here if you're DNX.
It certainly is, and, you know, especially with, you know, the scaling that we keep talking about that is offered by this team, as the Rift Herald is going to get canceled.
DNX thought they wanted this fight, but they didn't know Mozzie was here. Shady Gecko now just going to evacuate and leave his top laner to die. Panzora eventually will get autoed down. It looks like Shady Gecko is able to escape, but yeah, I mean, they thought for a second they wanted that fight in the side lane, but the collapse from Goldfish Gaming does come through.
Yeah, and if you're DNX, right, like you're just kind of looking at like their composition and kind of like the tools that you have in terms of like once DNX uses their ultimate abilities, we talk about, okay, what do they have left in the tank? It's basically just Ashe auto attacks coming through in terms of your consistent damage coming through, and we saw the fact that Mundo is able just to sit on top of the Ashe the entire fight. But actually, Ashe Arrow, this is a lot.
Could be it. Enchanted Crystal Arrow into the Paranoia. Exhaust is down as well. Mozzie is very, very fast, but is he fast enough? Flash from Shady Gecko. The last auto, not quite going to get a volley. Not in range. Mozzie doing his best Houdini impression is now Peanut in the middle of 3, but he ain't scared of no one. Still has the ultimate available. Is now going to burn it. Shady Gecko is going to be going down. Hot like is Peanut, but Fahu now looking for the fight. Peanut's got the ultimate ticking. Yeah, he will easily take down this 80 carriers bot lane. We've got action as well. Lights Genesis looking for the dive here with Okami. It's Catasol finding a fear. There's a knock-up as well. They grab the shutdown. The Vladimir has fallen, but Goldfish Gaming win the fight on the other side. 2 for 2 across the map. Nothing more to be found.
And a really big shutdown for DNX, but it does go into the pocket of the Ornn, and you know, while he will be able to use it, pretty much anyone else, other than the Morgana, I guess, would have been preferable. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but that is a huge amount of gold to give over to the enemy team. So even though I feel like Goldfish there flexing the lead that they do have with the ability to dive under these turrets and take those really improbable fights like Mossy and Peanut did, but Mossy just going in a little bit too deep after with to be able to help out Peanut, and same in the bot lane for Lights Genesis too. So this is a little bit of signs of life, I will say, for DNX with the specifically with the bounties, which also are attached to some of these turrets as well. As they start to whittle those down, if they can, the gold lead will fall a little bit faster than you might expect.
Yeah, it honestly felt like Mossy was trying to say, hey, kill me instead of Peanut, because kind of like talk about the bounties. Peanut is sitting on a 700 gold bounty. Like this guy's 8-0-2 on a Mundo. He's 3 items. I would be very surprised if this guy ever dies. Look at that HP bar. This guy is massive here in the side lane. This look at that, bam. And honestly, I think he might be able to kill him.
Yeah, he doesn't even care. He's just going to immune the Everfrost. Shady Gecko finds himself in a sticky situation here as well. Going to get put to sleep. Okami will surely finish this one off. There it is. Peanut still going ham down here in the bot side. Couple kills here for Goldfish. They are going to be moving right onto this Baron. Peanut still has pressure here in the bot side. It looks like DNX want to look for the collapse. The Ash Arrow goes wide. They're not going to find the knock up there. The Spell Shield will prevent it, but Peanut has no ultimate here, so will surely go down. It is going to be a pretty big shutdown going over, but I think it's going to be a relatively even trade. Baron will be picked up by Goldfish Gaming, and they won the fight kind of on both fronts there before Peanut falls.
It's definitely worth to get the Baron for Peanut dying. That does make it better for Goldfish, but I don't think that it was necessary. I like what Peanut did, flexing his muscles, going under the turret, killing Catasol, who just looked totally powerless in that situation. But after that happens, you have to have the awareness to be running away. I don't think DNX would be contesting that Baron, and even if they were, Peanut did have the teleport available to go help the team. So just some poor map awareness, again, a little bit of greed. It's something that you can usually get away with when you're this far up, but as far as what you want to see from the perspective of maybe a coach thinking about some of these closer games, still not ideal for Goldfish.
Yeah, and we do see the Dragon Soul point being up here spawning in about 5 seconds here to our Goldfish, and you definitely put yourself in a pretty, I would say, good position to pick this one up. It's so hard to enter, even though they have these long range, what I would consider semi-global abilities coming through, because maybe Ash's arrow, which is the global ultimate. You can definitely kind of force your way into that Dragon Pit if you really wanted to, but with how tanky Mundo and how tanky Okami can be, with the ability to do so much damage and soak it all up and buy so much time with the pool, if you lose that dragon fight, you basically just lose the game right afterwards if you're not careful about it. So definitely a much better decision just to kind of turtle at your base, kind of give yourself a better opportunity to kind of fight with your towers, because the enemy team, they have the Baron buff, they're going to get this push off regardless, and you're going to have to find basically a miracle if you're DNX, in terms of if they can actually one-shot someone, if they can actually lend their abilities coming through.
Baron Siege will ensue here for Goldfish. We'll see how much of the base they can kind of break away and chip away at here as they do try to push onto front. It's Peanut in the mid lane, whittling away at this inhibitor. Not a ton of wave clear options here for the DNX squad. Yeah, okay, Ash can, hit some of them with the volley and Nocturne as well, but overall, not a ton of resources, especially against these Baron up minions, and it's going to be a couple of minutes here before actually engage coming through. Okami, nice blood well there, going to get away from the enchanted crystal arrow, and the siege will continue. Oh, look at that Sivir damage, my goodness.
Yeah, and we referenced earlier how that Sivir damage really does start to heat up. And the problem right now is Peanut, who is split pushing in this mid lane. It looks like finally something's going to happen.
Ooh, Paranoia coming down. Call of the Forge God going to land a knock up onto 2. Now into the back line goes Catasol, but he's exhausted. It's going to be Fahu the first to fall. Peanut under 2 towers just doesn't even care. Panzora's going to do what he can, but he's the last man standing. Goldfish just ignore the Ornn, pick apart the rest of DNX, and they are going to equalize this series at 1 apiece.
Yeah, and this is a great job here by Goldfish Gaming. We talked about how game 1, it was basically just controlled almost all the way by DNX in that one. And game 2 is the exact opposite here if you are a Goldfish Gaming. Right now, we are going right back to a best of 3, which we've seen these teams play all year long. It's a 1-1 game, and honestly, I think for both teams, they both won on the red side so far, and I would be very surprised if DNX does not go right back to the red side.
Goldfish
hold
Gaming.
on, y'all.
Oh.
I'm just on the phone. I have to report. Well, first of all, I'm on the phone as an homage to Jerp, but also I gotta report a griefer to Riot Games. Yeah, their name's Okami, and it just I can send them you their op.gg here, but based on this game, I don't know that they're really putting in their full effort in Vladimir solo queue. So just wanted you to have that information, but.
Definitely showing up here when it matters on that Vladimir. We talked about Okami, the Thursday MVP, coming into this series, and here in game 2, showing up big time when it counts.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely, we kind of talked about Okami, especially in game 1. He was able to have a pretty solid impact, but he was one of the only ones to really got to get into that back line. But we saw it in this game, too. We kind of talked about even Catasol, being the mid lane rock for this DNX team, but he was put down several CS, outright solo killed. I think maybe I know for sure once, maybe even twice by Okami in this one. So definitely a much better performance for the MVP of Thursday's group. And, I would assume DNX going back to the red side, like I just said, so they might be able to kind of give Panzora the kind of the opportunity to kind of play around it. And we kind of talked about how the Vex champion for DNX is a very prominent pick coming through for their I guess the way that they like to play the game in a sense. And DNX kind of had the Vladimir in their back pocket saying, hey, if they pick this, I could just dominate it in the laning phase and not let it have the impact that it usually does. So we're gonna have to see how this kind of alters the draft a little bit, kind of going the rest of the way.
Yeah, can confirm DNX have chosen red side for game 3. Players are getting ready to jump right into that one, so we're going to take a short break as we get ready. But we've got a series on our hands now, folks, so grab some water, grab some popcorn. We've got at least 2 more games coming your way. We'll be right back. Welcome back, gamers and League of Legends fans. We are here for game 3 of the CCS Grand Finals. It is Goldfish Gaming back onto the blue side here for game 3. DNX opting in for the red. Once again, I am Lindor, joined today by 2 lovely color casters, Elsa and Orion.
And we were just talking a little bit in the break here about Panzora in that last matchup. We put a lot of focus on him on the pregame as well. 2 MVPs in this series, but we only really got to see the skill of one of them in that last game in particular, with Panzora put on the Ornn duty. So as we go into this next draft, it looks like the bans are going to be starting up. And, if I were to give DNX some advice, I would say it's to put some agency in the hands of their MVP of Panzora. And I think they're well set up to do that here now that they're back on the red side.
Yeah, and it's typically the side that DNX likes to go for. Pretty similar to Goldfish Gaming, right? DNX has their MVP in Panzora, Goldfish has their MVP in Okami, and they typically like to kind of put them in the best possible situations and for their overall skill set, right? Which is why red side is such a powerful side in terms of putting yourself in that position to kind of have the ability to outright kind of pick certain champions in the game and outright have a lot of impact and agency in these games. But for DNX, or actually, for DNX, an issue that's kind of we saw last game was the Mundo. They didn't quite. They saw the Wukong pick coming through game 1, and the Mundo was able to just have so much impact throughout that game, but. With Peanut being a very weak side, I guess honestly just a major tank player coming through, he has multiple other champions, and it kind of feels weird just outright banning Mundo, even though he's actually been we saw game 1 didn't have much impact at all, but game 2 when he put it tank v tank, he was able just to outright smash that matchup. So we'll have to wait and see just like what Panzora is going to end up picking into if it is the Mundo again, because he won't have that Wukong option. And honestly, like we said earlier, like the tank option was okay, but he was outright just bullied by the Mundo option, which is a tank that kind of just outright does more damage than other tanks do in landing phase.
Even does more damage than the mage assassin bruiser tank that is Ornn. So yeah, I mean, Peanut just a little bit more comfortable, right? On those tank matchups, that's more his style. As we know from Panzora, really likes to play more of that carry style. So we'll see if maybe DNX can put him on one of those more comfortable champions. So far though, in this draft, ban's exactly the same as game 2. Excuse me, and Goldfish Gaming pretty much insta-locking that Sivir on the other side for DNX. Very powerful bot lane duo. Lucian, of course, could be flexed around, but pairing this up with the Braum can lead to some very fast concussive procs.
Yeah, and speaking about kind of carry top laners, Lucian coming through, we don't know where it's going to go, but it is a triple flex. We've seen people play this into the top side. Of course, DNX going to wait to have a better idea of how they feel about that matchup. And then picking up the Braum too, it does kind of tease the strength that the Lucian would bring to the bot side. More recently, we've seen a lot of kind of Lucian Nami combos, but Braum is just that typical pairing with it because of how fast, like you said, Lindor, those concussive blows do stack up. But as Goldfish Gaming takes their second rotation here, coming back to the Kayn, which has been a big pick for Mossy, even if it's not something that we typically see kind of in the larger scheme of play, and a little bit of a different look here with the Rakan from Lights Genesis.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the Rakan pick actually does, I would say, fairly well into a champion like Braum, because Braum isn't a champion that just outright CCs Rakan, and Rakan is kind of known as being a very just very flexible support champion. You can get in fights, you can get out of fights super quickly. Your momentum and your outright mobility coming through is definitely very, very promising. This Gwen pick most likely is going into the top lane, I would assume, here for Panzora. I'm not sure, but I don't actually remember seeing a lot of Gwen, if hardly at all, for. Oh, he did play the Gwen last series?
Yeah. He had one, I think he played it against the Nasus against Hard Hat Zone, and definitely had that strong split push presence. So they are definitely going back towards that style again.
One thing to note is Shady Gecko also does have a Gwen game or two this year, so still, again, potential for the flex there, but we'll have to see how it does end up shaking out for DNX. Second phase of bans here, not surprised at all to see that Vladimir hitting the ban table here in Game 3, and Goldfish Gaming on the other side, they're considering this Vex ban. With the Vladimir banned away, I think probably the Vex or the Vlad is something that they like to pick into that Vex, and so with that ban coming out from DNX, they're more comfortable now to take the Vex off the table and kind of squeeze that mid pool.
And another thing that's interesting is kind of this game of chicken that's going on with Goldfish, just saying, how willing are you to ban away this Mundo when they don't pick it in the second rotation? So I don't necessarily think that it will be banned here. I would imagine not. I feel like taking this Gwen, it is sort of that tank busting pick. And on top of that, it seems like something that, if you're going to leave open the Mundo to begin with, it's because you still feel confident in playing against it. So that will end up being the case here. So DNX, I would imagine, going to lock in their pick for either bot lane or jungle. I mean, probably jungler here. So they do already know, they're going to be against the Kayn. So I'm interested to see what Shady Gecko decides to pick up.
Yeah, a jungle pick here does make a lot of sense. You definitely kind of in theory, want to leave up that option of Lucian going into the mid lane if the matchup is promising for you. Poppy coming through does stop a couple of the dashes coming through for both Kayn and Rakan coming through, and we've also seen Shady Gecko play a decent amount of Poppy, I would say, into some of the dash champions that we've seen a lot of other teams play. Also, Poppy is a champion that actually does have some decent base damage stats coming through, and also you can just kind of outright build Divine Sunderer, which applies all that much more damage coming through to certain champions. So we'll have to wait and see what Poppy's build is going to end up being in this one. Poppy also a pretty good champion into Yone, does not stop the Fate's Call. The Umbral Trespass. No, not Umbral. It doesn't stop Umbral Trespass, and it doesn't stop the Yone's ultimate coming through.
Fate Sealed. You got it.
Fate Sealed. There you go. So it doesn't actually stop either of those abilities. And Tom Kench coming through, I guess, as a sense of security coming through. Actually, no. Well, I guess Tom Kench top into Gwen could probably do okay, but with Tom Kench receiving nerfs in terms of a solo lane, I
Hmm.
don't know how much this matchup would actually play out because
Wow.
Gwen likes the melee close up matches because you can just gotta snip the target and the target can't do much damage back to you.
It is going to be the Tom Kench coming through. Elsa, one thing that immediately jumps out for me about this Goldfish Gaming composition is it is basically all physical damage coming out from this squad. Do you think that's going to be a problem here in this one?
I think a lot of times in this meta, it's not because there's not too many tanks necessarily, but given that the Poppy has been picked up here for DNX,
Mm.
that is going to be a nice situation for her. And then, Vigar being the last pick there. But yeah, I mean, it's important to point out with that all AD because it still does kind of feed into that same point of what Goldfish struggled with in the first game, which was that lack of damage. That time it was kind of more based on the champion select. But if that ends up being the case based on their damage spread this time, that could be problematic. And, Vigar also, just to touch on that pick really quick here, for DNX, it's a really strong pick in general just because of its ability to scale. Yone is going to want to try to get in its face early on and get some ganks off with the Mossy, but if he
Mhm.
can start to get through that early game, Cage will really be a really, really useful tool. And this is a champion that Goldfish really struggled against
Right.
last week against Horizon. Kaiser had a lot of success in it, I believe, in 2 games in a row, games 1 and 2. And I know for Goldfish, they said when the third game they were able to ban Vigard, how much of a mental lift for them that was, which is why they first picked it in the other game. So opting
Right.
not to do that this time, and they're gonna be challenged on that.
I have one more question for you, Elsa, because us Wednesday folk, we might not watch too much of the Thursday games, and I know Mozzie's played some Kane games, but is this the blue Kane coming out here today, or is it more? Does he more go for that red style?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it was the first time we saw Mossy play Kane this season, but the first time I saw it was against Horizon, and he was paired with the Yasuo that time, which is something that they
Hmm.
did last week as well. That
Right.
time the first time he ever played it, he went blue, and he told me that the coach said he would never be able to play it again because of the fact that he went blue Kane. The subsequent 2 times I've seen him play it, he went red. I would
Okay.
imagine red again. I think red is the only angle here. You need to bring that utility in CC, and plus, other than the Vigar, Lucian has pretty good escapability. I don't really know who you're one-shotting as blue Kane in this one.
Yeah,
Fair
and
enough.
also just kind of looking at DNX's composition, you could honestly kind of consider DNX's composition very similar to what Game 1 wanted to accomplish. Like, you want them to kind of Goldfish wants to run at you, and
Mhm.
DNX wants you to run into them because they have the Vagar cage, they have Poppy's W as well coming through, even Gwen's W as well. Like, the whole Gwen is immune thing. So like, if you run into them and you get stuck in basically kind of like their little circle, like their circle area of effect abilities, where like you can't actually get out of them. The champions like Kane, Rakan, and Yone, they like to be very mobile. They like to be very like active in these fights. They don't want to stay in one place because that's just not what their champions are meant to be doing. So if you can lock them in place with the like Glacial Fissure, Vagar's cage coming through, the Lucian and the Gwen can wreak a lot of havoc to targets that are actually particularly very, very close to them, which is what Goldfish Gaming's composition does want to do. But
Right.
Goldfish Gaming's comp does have a bit more of an easier time than they had in Game 1, just due to the fact that when Yone goes in, Rakan and Kane have a very easy time just basically attaching themselves to that Yone and just going in right along with them for the ride.
Yeah, it's kind of been the story of the disengage compositions, right? So far through this series, the team going for the engages hasn't necessarily been the team winning those fights. So we'll have to see if this one does turn that on its head a little bit. Something that we didn't talk about much in game 2 that I think is relevant and that I'll bring up here is we've talked about, Panzora being the MVP for Wednesday, being that carry in the top lane for DNX, and Okami being the same thing for Goldfish, but in the mid lane. And we've seen in game 1, it was Panzora getting the better of that top lane matchup, and in game 2, it was Okami doing the same when Panzora was on the Ornn and didn't have an option to be getting aggressive. Now in this game, I feel like they're both on champions that might have some early game agency, that might have some kill threat in lane, and maybe we'll finally get to see the clash of these two titans coming together in this game 3.
And it's going to be on Catacol to play like he did in lane in game 1, staying safe. He was able to stay back and stay safe on the Victor. Vigar, very similar champion in that he has some ranged ability to hit those minions, has, the event horizon this time instead of the gravity well. But, I honestly think that it's probably a little bit better for evading those ganks. So, on the flip side, Goldfish Gaming is going to be the ones, we've seen this go back and forth in game 1 and game 2. Which team has the timer on them, needing to make things happen for themselves early on to snowball the game? Because if eventually Gwen is going, it doesn't matter how well Peanut plays, Gwen is going to outscale this Tahm Kench, is going to be a threat in the side lane split push. And then on top of that, the Vigar as well, stacking up those Qs, gonna be able to one-shot people in their face at some point in the game. It's just a question of when that is. So, so far the team with that fire under their ass, I'll say, has failed to, deliver. But Goldfish is gonna look to buck that trend here in game 3.
The all-important game 3, when the series is tied up at 1, that game 3 can mean a lot of momentum. It can be a big difference maker in a 5-game series. We'll see who can get the better of this one. We'll see who can get momentum heading into game 4 in just a moment as we load on the Rift. It is game 3 of the CCS Grand Finals. DNX and Goldfish Gaming at 1 game apiece heading into this one. I'm here with Orion and Elsa the Queen, and you guys, we might get some spicy level 1s here finally in this series.
Yeah, we're gonna see the bit of a Braum invade here coming through, especially Braum invade with Lucian. You're able to get a very quick concussive blow coming through, but a nice cheeky ward here placed by Dirt, so they will be able to see this invade coming through. And there's actually no sweeper purchased here by the side of DNX, so they know exactly where these guys are all the way through. And we see multiple wards actually already being placed, so definitely, I guess, like being way over precautious here if you are Goldfish Gaming, because they realize that, hey, our level 1 definitely nothing compared to what the level 1 is that Braum brings, because I don't think they have any actual CC in the kit besides maybe if they were to level up Rakan or Tahm Kench W, and like they could like layer those knockups coming through, which could theoretically be very deadly, but also very, like, not necessarily the easiest to pull off in terms of the invades coming through. So far, it was mostly just information kind of gained from both teams, but, one jungler is not going to know where the enemy team starts, and the other team will know.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because that Lights Genesis did not use the sweeper earlier there, because it seems like Goldfish was trying to do a fake leash in order to fake out, in order to catch DNX off guard there as far as Mossy's pathing. That's not going to happen. And instead, it will be also some creative early game moves here from Shady Gecko to take that recall and start over on the red side. So, we talked about how important Mossy's early presence would be in this series, and especially in this game. So I'm excited to find out where he's going to place his attention early.
Yeah, and we're already seeing a lot of heavy aggression here from the bot side of Fahu and Xernia. They're trying to get level 2 early because they know with the early passive procs coming through with the Braum and just the outright damage that they can have, they can definitely do a lot of damage to like Sivir or Rakan very, very quickly. So they're going to have to keep an eye on those two down there on that bot side. But, honestly, I feel like a lot of this early game is going to be a bit slow, I would say. It's going to kind of be up to the junglers to see if they want to kind of pick up the pace of this game coming through, because it doesn't look like a lot of kill. Maybe the only lane here through like the top side of the map could be very, very aggressive, but Shady Gecko is kind of searching here. Definitely does have the wraparound, but they're not being super aggressive for this wave. Here they go.
They wanted to go for the cannon. Dirt gonna find the spell shield Lights Genesis with a very nice knock up there. The grand entrance will deny. Shady Gecko coming in for that gank. You get the flash out of Dirt, but it is in return for the flash of Xernian, the flash of Fahu, and their ignite. So definitely a positive summoner spell trade there for the Goldfish gamers.
It definitely is a really good trade, but I will say that Sivir Flash is probably the most useful one out of anyone in that lane on either side, just because she is that immobile character, whereas Lucian at least does have the E. But I like the way that gank was theoretically set up. Doesn't end up working out just because of some nice moves by Lights Genesis. And speaking of Lights Genesis, has played, I believe, 1, maybe 2 Recon games this split, but it definitely fits the engage style that we're used to. Speaking of.
Yeah, that's a big knockup. Lots of damage coming through. Lights Genesis does have to be careful. Has the dash to get away. Fahu is going to be all right, though looking a little bit worse for wear here down on the bot side.
Yeah, and we're seeing this like pressure being kind of put in Panzor early on. Like, you know, the fact that yes, Tahm Kench is kind of known as this like early champion that can do has a lot of base damages, but Gwen likes to be like kind of in your face, being able to snip you like every time the Q is up off a cooldown, and it's only going to get worse here for Peanut as this game goes on, but he's actually able to build up a pretty solid CS lead for himself, already up 11 CS at the 4-minute marker, which is really, really good here at the early stages of the game. So definitely like to see that, but you know, we saw Mossy try to do the same thing that Shadykiko did to the bot side of the map, a bit of a return gank, you would say, because they knew that they both don't have flashes, but they were able to get out of town there quickly enough, but they're still able to hide the CS lead. But we have Shadykiko, I think, wrapping around mid lane, though. Here's the cage.
Event Horizon comes down into the baby cage. They're going to slam him into the wall. Now the damage coming through. Can Okami get out? No. First blood claimed here for DNX. Shadykiko. Nice little combo there. Put him in the baby cage, slam him into the wall, and get the follow-up.
Yeah, using that Poppy E in a really creative way there. There's not a physical, you know, there's not terrain there, but Vigar Cage will do just well enough. And then also, you know, Steadfast Presence there coming in very clutch, and it will be, you know, if I had to pick one ability that was maybe the most important in this game, it would be that.
Catasol's got to be careful here. Mozzie through the wall. Yeah, they're going to be able to find it. Okami trying to come forward, will force out the flash there. A little bit of a greedy recall spot, unfortunately, there for Catasol is going to cost him his flash.
Yeah, and overall, like I would say the game is at, you know, a pretty solid game state if you're, in a sense, both teams, because, you know, with that ability to kind of push away Catasol, forcing his flash and his TP there, you had the bot lane getting back to lane, so this does mean the Dragon is going to go your way, but even though the first kill of the game was to your own mid laner, Okami here, because of this very cheeky play by Shadykiko and Catasol coming through, so definitely like to see that one, but you know, overall, like I would say that the overall game state is pretty even in terms of gold and also in terms of just like overall XP and the amount of pressure we're seeing from both teams. And you know, both teams are trying to be as active as possible. We see Shadykiko is like hovering down in the spot half of the map again. Lights Genesis, he's on the recon, a very roam-heavy support, but at the same time, if you do leave this Sivir by herself down here with all these 3 champions, he can be very easily killed.
This is a big wave too, so definitely wants to pick this one up.
Lights Genesis. Yeah, we'll be here to defend any sort of potential dive. Shadykiko, though, has expended a lot of time, so wanting to maybe try and wait a couple extra seconds as mid lane. Okami gonna find a big trade here onto Catasol. The ultimate coming forward, the snap back, rip the soul out. Okami finding the solo bolo. Here on the bot side, though, Shadykiko biding his time in this bush, does have flash available. Does Light Genesis or Dirt step up? Here they come into the bush. Shadykiko gonna grab that and the stun into the wall. They're gonna follow it up. They're gonna look for the stun. Gecko grabs the kill. The Poppy's 2-0.
And so patient from Shadykiko, just ends up paying off. Sat in that bot lane for such a long time. Finally, it's Lights Genesis who's the one who ends up being the victim, though.
Yeah, and that's a very important kill as well, because like you said, Shadykiko sat down that bot lane for a very long time, and you know this Kayn has been basically chewing through his camps on the top half of the map. So you know Shadykiko picking up that kill down there, yes, it kind of does put himself in what I would say a pretty even state with what the Kayn is in this specific game. But Kayn is chewing through all these camps, so by the time Shadykiko does get back on the map to his top half of the map, he's not going to have hardly any camps to take due to the fact that he was sitting there for a long time. Oh, actually, here goes Peanut.
Zora might be in trouble here. We're going to have Mozzie waiting in the wings, but the Gwen is going to be able to dash away, put up the Shroud, and get out of dodge. Shouldn't be too scared here about any sort of dive attempt, and Mozzie is going to continue on his way. Potentially looking to start up this Rift Herald. Shadykiko still on that reset like you talked about, Orion. We'll see if you can get back on the map in time. I'm not sure this is a contestable objective here. Goldfish Gaming 2 for 2 so far on the neutrals.
Yeah, Goldfish Gaming grabbing both of those is going to be big. You know, where we do see one of the biggest deficits so far is going to be this Sivir falling behind the Lucian. And last game, the Sivir getting ahead with those 3 kills in that kind of early mid game was a huge part of Dirt's success. So not having that this time is going to make it harder.
Into the top side. Now it's going to be Peanut looking to get away with the Abyssal Voyage. Flash as well going to be expended. Thick skin. This Tahm Kench is going to be a tough nut to crack, but Shady Gecko with his first trip up to the top side.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about with Tahm Kench, like the changes that they made to kind of ensure that he would be more of a support champion, was the fact that when he has multiple champions around him, he gets the full shield coming through. But when he's only by himself, he actually gets a much smaller shield coming through. So with the gank from Shady Gecko coming through, that definitely means that he had the much bigger shield on top of that, so he was able to actually soak up just that much more damage. So, you know, definitely a good job by Peanut being able to absorb all of that. It did have to blow his flash though, in return for both Panzora's Ghost and the Needlework coming through. But there we go. We see that once again, Peanut trying to get this lockdown. He does have the cage.
Okami has to snap back, but the cage will expire. Mozzie is here looking for some damage. Fate sealed, it's on to 3. It's going to be Mozzie into the ultimate, claiming a kill. Just the Veigar goes down. We saw those ultimates from Okami come up so big in game 1. This time, though, there is real tangible follow-up, and you see it right there. They're able to grab one. Bahu looking to E in, now has to flash away. Ultimate going to be taken away here, but it's going to find mostly minions. The Lucian not able to find anything on the backside. The charge is going to claim some towers as we do head into a pause here, but Goldfish equalizing the gold lead here, able to get a couple tower plates down as well. Okami, the beneficiary of most of that gold.
Yeah, Okami going to pick up a lot of it, which, you know, as always, that is where Goldfish wants it to go. And in the champion select, we pointed out how Catasol needed to play the style that he played in game 1, which he played really, really well, staying back on the Victor and staying safe. Hasn't been able to do so far on this Veigar, and it is going to leave DNX guessing, because both Veigar and Victor, I think I misspoke before, were both available in this draft. They opt for the Veigar, and, you know, they need to justify it so far, because it hasn't looked quite as good as the Victor did for Catasol in game 1.
Yeah, and one thing I actually just noticed up here for Panzora is typically, you know, with most Gwens, like, we like to see Conqueror coming through just because it actually provides you just that much, like, outright damage and healing coming through. The lethal tempo option, typically, like, yes, you do have the more attack speed, you are able to get more Qs more often, but Conqueror typically is just a much better rune choice, especially when you're dealing with, like, higher health champions coming through, which is the Tahm Kench choice. So, you know, when I talked about how, like, these long trades can be very, very crucial for Gwen, like, the lethal tempo definitely doesn't really help in terms of, like, the long trades, because you don't actually have that Conqueror choice, the Conqueror being built up every single time you go for that Q coming through. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see if the lethal tempo is actually going to work out here for Panzora. Up in the top half of the map, we'll have to wait and see. But, you know, it does look like Goldfish is, DNX is actually going to be able to move over this Dragon, even though we saw so much pressure being built up towards the mid lane section. So, yes, you know, we've been seeing a lot of really good things out of Goldfish here in the mid lane. It's actually a very even gold lead and a Dragon lead at the same time.
And I think there for Goldfish, you know, it seems like they were okay with letting that Dragon go. I think it's kind of interesting here.
Panzora looking for a 1v1 here against Mozzie, who has to be a little bit careful here. Okami now is going to be on the rotation. Panzora with the Needlework looking for this one. It's going to be the Umbral Trespass coming through. Lights Genesis wants to join the fray as well. Panzora, he's found himself in a 1v3, and that is not one he grabs. But Peanut now finds himself in a similar situation. Bot side cross-map trading, both top laners go down.
And there we see, like, the top lane fight coming through. Like, we see just, like, the Gwen damage just isn't the same without the Conqueror. Honestly, I would dare to say that Mozzie probably is just outright dead if he has that Conqueror coming through, that extra AP, the extra healing, along with Gwen's passive as well coming through, the ability to have that much more healing on top of all of her built-in damage coming through. Definitely a bit of an easier survivability choice coming through. But at the same time, like, you know, we saw, like, DNX, like, every time you make a play in the top half of the map, they almost always make an answer in the bot half. So Peanut not respecting that ability to come through. So yes, they do get the kill in the top half of the map, but DNX gets the same kill and a tower as well. So the gold lead is basically right back to even.
Yeah, and they don't get to answer the tower here from Goldfish. So while that still will be some standing gold on the top side for them to pick up, probably sometime in not the too far future, that will leave them a little bit behind, at least for the moment, in terms of the gold distributed amongst their team. But I wish we could have did not see kind of the lead up to what happened in the bot lane in particular. But it seemed like Peanut may have opted in to that fight, which makes it a little bit disappointing because, yes, DNX were able to trade it back on the other side, but definitely looked like it may have been preventable from Goldfish Gaming.
Fortunate on the bot side, yeah, Peanut not allowing his team to make the play on the opposite side. But speaking of plays, Shady Gecko gonna block the engage there from Light's Genesis, and it's a good thing he did, because there was some follow-up coming through there from Goldfish. So the Poppy's going to be all right for now. Actually, has all 3 of the kills so far for DNX. Not necessarily where you might want some of that gold, but Shady Gecko going to be feeling pretty strong here on the Poppy. Heavy trading in this top side. Some interesting map rotations and macro decisions here from Goldfish. They've transitioned already into kind of this early 1-3-1 setup. Orion, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, especially with like the shield bow and the berserker race already being built up here by the Yone can opt in for a lot of these very, very aggressive trades into the Gwen and Gwen. Yes, she does have the Riftmaker, but a lot of her damage is usually back-end damage that comes through. And Yone can typically do almost all of his damage before Gwen is really able to return a lot of that damage. So I actually do kind of like that specific lane assignment coming through. A bit of a panic ulti here from Dirt, I would say. He definitely didn't want to be in a position to get outright chain CC'd by the Poppy into the Braum as well. But I'm pretty sure he, unless he used his E a little bit earlier in lane, what we just didn't see, he definitely could have just used that skill to dodge from the Poppy potentially coming through. But nonetheless, he still used it, so we definitely won't have that ability up and available. But now since they were able to kind of push Panzora out of that top side, they're able to transition that power over to the Rift Herald, which is most likely going to be used on that mid lane tower that's already cracked to about 30% HP.
And as they hover around here, just to touch one more time, oh, never mind. Well, no, never mind again. Just to touch one more time on those lane swaps. To me, I think it's less about the strength of the Yone. I think it's more about getting Peanut out of this 1v1 against Panzora, because that is exactly what DNX want. We talked about the timer, and time is pretty much up here for the Tom Kench. Certainly going to be able to affect the team fights, but is going to struggle against Panzora, who is 2 levels down to the Yone.
Yeah, and actually has to be careful here, as Mozzie might be looking for a dive. Needlework coming through for a lot of damage. Panzora looking to turn this back around, but ultimates are still available. Mozzie putting down the Rift Herald here. Panzora looking to defend. Low health bars on Okami and Mozzie, but now Okami wants to go for it. Fate Sealed is going to be coming through. Over the wall comes Mozzie, and they are able to grab the 2v1. And this Rift Herald may even get another charge. This is a massive play here for Goldfish. DNX, they have to answer this, but they're pushing in the mid lane.
Yeah, and honestly, I think this tower is outright going to fall, yeah, because they have a lot of damage.
Oh, they're going for the dive! Light's Genesis tries to dash away. He's going to go down. Shady Gecko a little bit worse for wear here. Fahu tanking up the tower. One more shot. Not quite going to get him down. But meanwhile, topside, we might get another Rift Herald charge. No. Catasol will be able to respond, but still, this top lane inhibitor broken at 16 minutes. A very, very early one here, as Mozzie might even look for more. Panzora is still up. Okay, he's going to be able to retreat over the wall.
Yeah, and I was actually just about to say, we typically, in terms of the overall consensus of what I would say the community is that an inhibitor before 20 minutes is kind of grief. Just because it's so hard to actually play around those siege minions, because yes, you can be super, super strong, but I mean, even like you just look at Goldfish's perspective, right? You're only up like 2,000 gold at the 17-minute mark. It's going to be very hard to play because you're basically going to sacrifice that entire lane of minions for the next 5 minutes.
Right.
So it's really up to kind of the rest of, like, honestly, DNX's members to say, hey, like, someone has to stay up there to soak up all that gold and soak up all that XP coming through. And then the rest of the team has to be able to kind of protect everything else on the map to the best of their ability and not give up anything to Goldfish's members.
And with DNX having the scaling advantage here as well, you know, they're a team that's definitely is going to feel happy to sit back in their base. You know, Panzora isn't going to have a problem clearing through these minions. Yes, it's going to take him a little bit longer, but, you know, it's not like it's a tank who's going to be stuck there unable to clear them. So I think this does play into the hands of DNX quite a bit, as this mid lane is going to be under siege one more time, and I don't think DNX is going to give it up easily. Maybe they will.
5 versus 3 there in the mid lane. So yeah, DNX do unfortunately have to retreat under their tier 2 and allow that mid lane tower to fall. So a little bit more gold into the pockets of Goldfish Gaming. And I'm seeing a blue cane here for Mozzie, y'all. Is that what you're seeing too?
It is indeed. It's a bit of a I would say it's a Kayn build that's been kind of a rising in popularity for a while. It's the fact that you can build Core Drinker and Menamune on Blue Kayn and still actually have a lot of damage just because of how strong Menamune as an item is compared to a lot of the other items. So not only does it give you a lot of mana, because like you're basically going to be using your E and W in fights permanently on cooldown to sustain going through the walls and having so much mobility and just being so active in basically all these fights. But you know, in terms of like just kind of like looking at this like gold graph and like the overall ability for Goldfish to like push their lead further. Actually, you see how
oh my goodness, so much damage coming out of the Yone, just basically one-tapping Catasoul, even as the Veigar tries to flash away. Okami, 4-1 in this game, definitely going to be a threat here in Game 3.
Another reason why it does make some sense here for Mossy to go with the blue cane is he runs
that is a very valuable Keeper's Verdict, but now they're going to be under the tower. They're going to find one. Can they find the second? Shady Gecko's still alive. Not going to find the stun. Going to get eaten up. Peanut is going to eat the calling to the back of the head. 2 for 1 is the trade. 3 for 1 if you count the Veigar. Goldfish putting the pedal to the metal here, trying to extend their gold lead. Now up close to 3,000 gold here 20 minutes in, and they're breaking down even more towers. Couple of kills here off the back of Okami's power as Fa, who's going to be the next target. They just don't stop.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm really questioning DNX's decisions here over and over again. We talked about how one member of DNX has to permanently be on the top half of the map to deal with those super minions, and that's basically been Panzora's duty. And Panzora has been picking up a lot of gold from those minions. Like, just from the past couple of minutes, like, we've seen him build up close to a 30 CS, probably going to get close to 40 to 50 CS alone, just for the fact that Peanut does not belong in that top lane. Basically, I don't really think nobody does, because you don't want to send Okami up there, because Okami is like, he's just going to push those waves, and Panzora can just stay underneath his tier 3 towers at his base, and like, even Okami can't really deal with that push. So, you know the map is going to be a 5 versus 4, and yet DNX keeps looking for fights.
Root comes through, but they are going to be leaving. Yeah, I mean, DNX do have to be careful. You're right. They have Panzora picking up so much golden XP in the top side. You can see he's level 13, closing in on Okami, who is level 14 now in this one. But it looks like Goldfish, they just want to go straight for this Baron. There is no red side vision in this area. DNX are pretty much clueless that this is happening. And look at how fast this goes down. So much DPS from the Sivir, from the Yone, from the Kayn, and that's going to be a 21-minute Baron right here for Goldfish Gaming.
And if you do pick up an inhibitor as early as Goldfish Gaming does, you need to do other things around the map to make it worth pushing the bot lane, getting the Baron, making sure that this game is going at just an incredibly fast speed here, race car track for Goldfish Gaming. But speaking of the fast pace, 26 seconds until this dragon, and it would threaten the soul point for DNX, which could kind of be their saving grace in terms of staying in this game. So Goldfish definitely not going to want to give this one up if they want to fight right now. They're just so much stronger, and they want to show that off.
Catasoul is going to find himself in a world of pain here once again. Trying to stand on top of his baby cage, looking for a stun here, but now the charm comes through. That's the grand entrance into everything. They just burn through the health bars, and once again, it's Catasoul overextended here in a side lane, getting picked off for the 4th time.
Yeah, and honestly, there's just no reason for Catastol to even be down there. Yes, you're trying to push out the wave, but you know Dragon's alive. You know that Goldfish wants to secure that because they don't want to give that third Dragon up and over to, DNX for whatever reason. And honestly, like, I was kind of just thinking about it. If you're Panzora in this game, you're kind of just looking at your teammates going, what are you guys doing? Like, I'm sitting up here in the top lane farming minions because we lost our inhibitor at 16 minutes. Like, I'm getting so much free gold, free XP, and you guys just keep taking 5 versus 4 fights over and over and over. And now you put yourself at an 8,000 gold differential when just a minute ago, I think at the 17-minute marker, it was just 2K.
Try and start whittling away at this gold lead. They're going to cancel the Abyssal Voyage. Peanut surely will fall here, but there's reinforcements on the way. Goldfish Gaming ready to answer into the backline. Are they going to go? Panzora will be the target. Gwen is immune for the moment. Okami going to get eaten up as he was in trouble there for a moment. Disengage from both sides coming through, but now Mozzie looking for the re-engage. He's going to go into the fray. He's on to Fahu. Doesn't quite have the damage to take out the Lucian, but they've effectively won the fight. They're going to be able to break down this inhibitor and continue leaving the premises. It looked sketchy there for a moment. It looked like maybe DNX were going to find a kill there or maybe more, but collapse comes through. Goldfish Gaming are able to win the pseudo 5v5 there and once again break down that inhibitor.
Although the inhibitor does get broken down, as you said, Lindor, this is the way that that DNX should have been playing for a lot of this game, just kind of playing not to die. Yes, the inhibitor's down. Guess what? They already had cleared the inhibitor early. It's really not a big deal, especially given that Goldfish had that Baron buff, which they really, I don't think, got nearly as much out of as they would have liked to there. So, even though it's nice to see Peanut being able to escape, Goldfish, I think they wanted probably two inhibitors down when all of that was said and done. So not being able to do that does just buy more time for this Vigar to be able to continue to stack and for Panzora to look for the angle to actually get this split push going instead of just clearing minions out in his own base.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly buying time if you're DNX for sure, but at the same time, like, you've put yourself in this position due to the fact that you took so many missed opportune fights in a way because you had Panzora doing getting a lot of XP and gold in the top half of the map basically for free. But instead of letting your top laner just get a lot of XP and a lot of gold because they took an inhibitor at 16 minutes, you decided to keep fighting and to keep trying to fight for control instead of basically alleviating that control over to Goldfish because they had the extra members. So yes, you are kind of stalling, you're waiting out, but you're down 8,000 gold. What's to stop Kayn, Yone, and Rakan from just diving your towers with the amount of gold that they have?
We'll find out, I guess.
Level 16 for this Yone. I mean, it's just so scary for DNX. They're gonna have to come up with a defense here somehow. They are down about 8,500 gold. Like you say though, no Baron buff still on for Goldfish gamers, so it's a little bit tougher for them to siege up these towers. And yeah, I mean, it's still Panzora soaking all this gold, soaking all this XP. Okami, not gonna find anything there. Fishing over the wall here with that soul unbound.
And this is just a really long period of time, before objectives come up. Still 1 minute and 20 seconds. Sure, not that long. Goldfish is going to pull back to start to set up the vision around the Baron and probably the Dragon as well, because they're going to be coming really close to each other. They are going to take the recall even, but still not gaining any advantages other than DNX is pushed back into their base, definitely denying them some jungle creeps. It is denying them some gold. I don't want to discount that, but very much alive in the overall scope of this game. And earlier we saw Okami matching up in the 1v1 side lane against Panzora. I'm not sure if it's that Okami doesn't assess himself as winning that 1v1 anymore, or what's going on, but I feel like they could have pushed the advantage possibly more that way. I know they're naturally pushing back into the base, but either way, with the Baron about to spawn, Goldfish still does have all of the priority as far as vision. That's something they were able to build up in the enemy jungle. And it's going to be all about whether DNX and Shady Gecko in particular can find those pathways, see the path nobody else can see into the Baron to try to contest this, if they do try to contest.
Yeah, and honestly, the contest is going to be pretty hard because they do have 4 members of Goldfish Gaming that can hop over the wall, and we do have, like, Catasol. We kind of talked about Catasol, like, kind of being the rock, the mid laner of this DNX team. But this is 2 games in a row where I would say he has struggled against Okami, and the pressure that Life Genesis and Mossy has put on there. And yeah, they're trying to get near this Baron, but honestly, Shady Gecko is like nowhere near it. They're just going to give it up. They don't have a great way of entering the pit. They had the control ward there, so they weren't able to actually stop it. And, they're going to actually sprint. They're going to use the Sorelias and also the Sivir's ultimate coming through, on the hunt to make sure they're able to secure the dragon as well, putting themselves at soul point and, kind of like just kicking in on this Veigar a little bit. He has hit the 200 passive marker for the total ability power that he is getting from that item, but he's only a 2-item Veigar. Yes, he does have that extra 200 ability power coming through, but it's not like he has that death cap that amplifies that 200 just that much more.
And looking at the scoreboard here, the 1K gold shutdown on Okami, that would make all the difference for Catasol to be able to get back in this game and, bring a little bit of light for DNX, so they'll have to be careful. But as I had mentioned earlier, about the Yone being in the side lane against the Gwen, we are going to see that setup again here from Goldfish now that they do have those Baron minions coming through. So it looks like they're just going to opt to ignore Okami, but he does have teleport should he need to come over into the fight.
Yeah, and not only that, but, with Kayn being the blue Kayn that he is, he actually has a really good wave clear, and he also has the ability to join up in fights like this.
Mozzie and Okami are going to take this 2v2. We'll see when reinforcements do arrive. Nice knockup coming through. Shady Gecko, Fahu, and the rest of the team are looking to come in here. Teleport being channeled. It's going to get messy here for a moment. Okami is just too dang tanky. They can't take him out. Panzora into the Zonias is going to have to dash away. Peanut still in the front lines, tanking a ton of damage. DNX will be able to leave, or will they? The follow-up coming through. Nice baby cage to provide some safety there. No re-engage to be found from Goldfish Gaming, but they are going to break open the base. 2 inhibitors will fall. Now Dirt, he's going to be in a little bit of trouble here. Fahu looking for the solo. He's going to find 1, but again, it's just 1 kill. DNX, maybe they've stopped the bleeding for now, but how long can they hold on to this one? Looking at Okami here, I mean, Elsa, you talk about how, yeah, he's worth 1,000 gold, but he's got a shield bow, a death stance, and a force of nature. I mean, he just straight up built a tank item. This is a very, very tanky Yone.
He's really, really hard to kill, and especially Death Dance being such a strong item right now, seeing 2 of those over on Goldfish. We'll see the Maw next for Okami, which is when it gets ridiculous, but Baron's still on for a little bit longer, and Goldfish doesn't want it to go to waste.
Ooh, Shady Gecko just able to prevent some of that engage from coming through. Now it's going to be Peanut into the back line, but he's actually just going to get eviscerated. Goldfish not quite on the same page there. Peanut going a little bit too deep, and they are going to find 1 more here on the side of DNX.
Yeah, I think that was just an attempt to try to follow up the Light Genesis initial engage, I would say, trying to get onto that back line, but with the Poppy W coming through, there wasn't actually much further Light Genesis could actually go through. And once Tom Kent presses W, there's no going back unless that does end up getting canceled out. But so far, like in terms of just looking at some of the item breaking points coming through, we do have 3 items on Lucian, we do have 3 items on Gwen, and Gwen spent almost the past 10 minutes of this game soaking up minions in the top half of the map. He went from being down CS top lane, I believe, to up over 100 CS over the Tom Kent just alone in that top side of the map. So, he's definitely getting to a point where he is decently strong himself in this one. Definitely not really close compared to what Okami and probably Mossy are bringing to a lot of these fights. And Mossy hasn't even completed the mana mune yet. He's sitting on that. He's been sitting on that 360 tier for probably 15 minutes now.
And we talked about, 10 minutes ago about how, Goldfish, they do have this big lead. How long is it going to take for Veigar to be able to get back into this game, and how long is it going to take for Panzora to be able to have an impact? Well, now Panzora has that huge lead. Veigar has completed a 3rd item, but will they be able to make it count as the 3rd inhibitor goes down? And so, the minions are going to start to go into the base, but eventually DNX has to come out on top in a team fight, and Goldfish is really going to want to push the issue as soon as they can, because you can tell that they're for sure getting afraid of what this Vigar and probably this Gwen are, what this Vigar will, and what this Gwen is already able to do.
Absolutely sure we're going to see the siege here onto the Nexus towers. Oh my goodness, that was an amazing interaction. The Poppy got eaten and then ulted herself away, and now Shady Gecko is on the wrong side of the rift. You have to be kidding me. They're gonna take him out. The DNX jungler is dead for 40 seconds. What more can Goldfish find here? Double super minions streaming into the base. 5v4 on the map. An unfortunate circumstance there for Shady Gecko. Not an interaction I think any of us have seen before, but here they go. That's the go button. They're into the backside. Nice Zhonya's from Catacol buying some time. Okami looking to do what he can, but Bahu has found a massive culling, and it's a defensive ultimate out of Okami. Mozzie into the fray, has to flash away. He's got no defensive ability left, and he's gonna go down. Panzora cutting them to bits. The scissors are snipping away, and DNX have found a miracle fight to keep themselves alive here in Game 3. Dirt will surely fall, and 4 are in the death chamber. The Nexus towers just barely hanging on. One will fall, the other will as well, but the Nexus is what's important, and it is still alive for the time being. Okami DPing back onto the map. This Dragon Panzora didn't expect this one. Does he win the 1v1? Nice Sonya's coming through, gonna immune a lot of the damage coming from the Soul Unbound, but Panzora still wants to win this fight. No, Okami is gonna grab it. He's gonna secure the Dragon Soul. What a game here in Game 3.
And we are just getting a huge show put on for us there, and finally we get to see the MVPs against each other 1v1. This time it's going to be Okami coming through on top, able to heal himself up off of that dragon a little bit, and the Baron is also back on the map. Mossie's respawning, Dirt 5 seconds, and Peanut just came up too, so objectives available again, but now the game after that fight looking so much more even for DNX. They have shown how they can stick in these team fights. Also, Faho, who we really haven't talked about all game, 5-1-4 on the Lucian, definitely online as well.
Yeah, and honestly, you would think that this game is a little bit closer, but at the same time, Hextech Soul was picked up by Okami during that 1v1 with Panzora, and not only that, but this is a Baron as well. You have Hextech Soul, you have Baron up available, and yes, like the fight was basically won outright by DNX due to the fact that they've been scaling up. They've been getting a lot of these CS coming through with all the siege minions coming through. But at the same time, you no longer have any Nexus towers because of all of those super minions, so you have to be very, very careful, because just because you won that last fight, if you can't protect your Nexus with these towers being gone, you just outright will lose this game. Doesn't really matter. Here they go!
He's found the ultimate onto a bunch. The fight's gonna break out in full. Fahu in the backside, unleashing the culling. Kane's gonna be the first to fall. Xernean looking to flash onto Dirt, but Panzora's in the middle, looking to fight out Okami, who's standing tall in the fight. Unsoul is gonna come through to dodge out on the stun, and the Thursday MVP still has a full health bar. The Nexus is open. Some heals coming through here for DNX as they try to hold the line. They grab the kill onto Peanut. What can Lights and Okami get here now? Just the inhibitor and nothing more. It's another defensive stand from DNX, and this game will last a couple minutes longer.
It should have been over there, but Peanut just being over aggressive, going forward without the support of his team, and so they're not able to finish it off. I was just about ready to be done with this game, but that is not the case. And this is not, yes, it's going to be the naked Nexus for DNX, but this is not one of those situations where it's just a few moments and Goldfish will be able to run it down and end the game. These fights are extremely close, and 36 minutes into the game, we're not quite at the point where a 5v5 fully ends it, unless it's, for DNX, but we're kind of getting close to that point.
Yeah, and we're also getting closer and closer to a point where the gold lead is becoming a lot more irrelevant. It's basically becoming down to the fact that, Goldfish has the Hextech Soul. I think it's Okami and Life Genesis still has that Baron buff up and available, but gold is becoming a lot less relevant, and we just saw that needlessly large rod being built up by Catacol in this one. We're going to do a bit of a a Vagar passive check here. 322 ability power being built up by him, by his passive alone, and if he is able to finish that death cap, he will provide a lot more damage. And honestly, that fight, he ended up using his ultimate onto a decently healthy Tahm Kench instead of a lower health target. But
Okami, knock up onto Fahu. Not going to be able to find any sort of follow-up, though. Still, this Baron buff and the Hextech Soul are available. They have both the super buffs. This could be the engage. Okay, Shady Gecko this time with Keeper's Verdict going to eject them out of the fight. Stun coming through here onto Light's Genesis. Just gets blown up. Here goes Okami. He's onto Exernian, but he didn't find the right targets. Now he's onto Fozzie. Can he get the kill? What a Keeper's Verdict. Fozzie into the middle is going to find one. Unite still standing tall. That's going to be a big stun from Catasoul, but it's not going to matter. The carries for Goldfish are still alive. It may have taken 3 attempts, but finally they find the fight, and finally they put the finishing touches here on game 3. Goldfish go up 2-1 in this series.
And it doesn't have to look pretty to work, and it's Goldfish coming through, finally doing what they need to do, ending the game, actually able to hit the Nexus. But for DNX, yes, you lost this game, but I think you do come out of it, feeling fairly good. They certainly could have won this game if a couple of things went differently in those later team fights. And as Orion, you pointed out many, many times, if they had just made some better decision making as far as their shot calling early in the game. So, going into as we enter the game 4, start getting ready for game 4 here, I don't feel like DNX is in a place where they're feeling out of this series.
Yeah, and honestly, I was kind of talking about with you guys a little bit earlier, it was about how there's a pretty big meme in Twitch chat for CCS that says we must fight, in terms of taking fights when they probably should not be taking fights. It's actually kind of hilarious because, it's true. We saw the ability that, DNX was able to get so much value out of these minions pushing through up in the side lanes, and all of them they were able to do, they're able to build up a bit of a fighting chance. But when you put yourself that far behind and you're able to basically fight tooth and nail over and over and over again, it's so hard to just outright win that game when you put yourself in that rough of position.
It was a little bit too little, too late there for the DNX squad. They stood tall. They had a chance. There was life in them yet, but that last team fight, Goldfish finally found the right targets. Were finally able to have the resources they needed to take it out, and they're going to take a 2-1 lead now in this series. Yeah, DNX now backs up against the wall. I believe this is the first time that DNX has been on an elimination game, maybe even this year, because they've had a pretty easy way through playoffs so far.
And this is, I reference this as coming in, talking about the experiences that both of these teams had in their respective conference finals. And, while Goldfish learned, that you need to be able to bounce back, that you need to have this resilience in these tough series for DNX, as you pointed out, Lindor, they haven't necessarily been in that exact same situation, at least in CCS. So being able to come through a game like this, that especially, I talked about how DNX should feel good because of how close. It's also really draining, right? Continuing to stay in that game till the bitter end, especially with some of those kind of feels bad, unlucky moments like what we saw with, Shady Gecko getting taken back by Tahm Kench. So for DNX, it's definitely going to need to be a mental reset.
Yeah, that was a fun interaction for sure. We'll have to go back. If no one clipped that Twitch chat, you're trolling, because that was some next level stuff. That's the front page of Reddit. All right, someone post that. But right. Yeah, it's Goldfish Gaming taking the lead here in this series in game 3. We're gonna see how things do shake out headed into game 4. DNX backs up against the wall. We'll be right back for game 4. Goldfish Gaming are 1 game away from being crowned the CCS champions. DNX backs up against the wall here in game 4, needing to find a victory to force a game 5. We already see a Yone ban hitting the table here. I think, respecting that Okami Yone, I think is definitely pretty smart there. Hey, Elsa?
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I think that as a Goldfish fan, as a fan of Okami, I think it's easy to kind of underrate Yone and think of it as kind of this greed pick, but really when you think of it, it does bring a lot to the table as far as ability to side lane, CC that it can bring, set up with some of these other champions. So I think that's a a smart one for DNX to take away. I am going to note after this last ban, it does mean the Singed is
Yep.
something that's potentially
Mm,
available, which is, I
mhm.
think, one of the better answers that Goldfish does have to these sort of split pushing champions that we saw in game 1 and game 3 from Panzora. But, as the Wukong does get taken away, it'll be interesting to see if DNX decides to pivot away from what they did last game.
Yeah, and not only that, but with Goldfish picking the victory up in game 3, they get side selection just due to how like the format is basically built in. Goldfish gets side selection set game 2 and game 4 automatically before like going into the game, regardless of the outcome. So you're putting Goldfish not only at game point, but they're back on the side that they prefer to be on in the first place. So if you're Goldfish, you're definitely feeling very, very strong going into this one because like you kind of you know the position you put yourself in, you know like what's been working for you so far, basically going into every single game, and it's up to DNX to find a way to get to game 5 and find a way to get back on red side.
Absolutely true. They do lock in the Ash here as their first pick, and over to Goldfish Gaming, looking like another Sivir game here for the man in the bot side there for them. See what they want to pair this one up with. I do like the Sivir pick, right? Because we've seen Goldfish play for these kind of wave clear style mages. For the most part, it's been the Ziggs for them, and so Sivir kind of fits that mold, just being kind of the AD version of it. And Lilia here for Mossy, that's going to be a huge pickup for them as well.
Yeah, Lilia was really big for Mossy in game 2. Really impressive on that champion. Again, what we always talk about with this player, pushing the pace, kind of this, high tempo style of jungling that I think is actually really difficult to pull off for a typical player of this level. But going back to the Sivir pick into the Ash, we saw that also in game 2, and it went really, really well for Goldfish. Obviously, Sivir with the spell shield is a pretty classic counter to Ash. And I will say that with some agency in the hands of Mori, last game was pretty impressive on the Lucian. Wasn't able to carry them, but did come up with a pretty decent lead. So interesting to pivot back to this Ash. It does provide that engage. So we'll see what else they pair that up with as far as kind of that long range ability to get in the fights.
Yeah, and we saw that composition, basically try to come through game 2, but they were able to kind of like, and I guess like pick some champions that they were pretty comfortable with picking, and we talked about this Singe pick being a champion that Peanut, it's been banned the first 3 games against him so far, so they definitely like they see this champion as a threat in a sense. DNX does because it's a lot of champions. Like it's champion. It's just very very annoying, and also with the Sivir movement speed buff of the on the hunt, sorry, coming through, it allows the champion to be enabled that much more. And honestly, like this Volibear or this Graves can be going up into the top side of the map theoretically. Like they're going to be interchangeable between top and jungle. We'll have to wait and see. I would assume it's the Graves in the top lane and Volibear in the jungle because that's kind of fits the mold of both of these players in terms of like what the style that they like to play. So we'll have to wait and see kind of like the other bands coming through. The Vex band, coming through is a bit surprising in my opinion because they didn't necessarily have to ban it this early unless DNX wanted to ban Vladimir because we saw that same matchup coming through where Vladimir was able just to run over the Vex in that specific lane and basically throughout the entire game almost.
And it's interesting you say that because I feel like, yes, that particular matchup did go really well for Okami. But on the other hand, I don't feel like Catasol really used the Vex as he usually does in terms of the engage potential and those kind of,
Yeah.
things that we talked about going into the draft. So I was actually surprised to not see them pick it on 3 there. I feel like, Goldfish maybe unlikely to ban out more junglers with the Graves being picked just in case that one does get sent over into the jungle. But it is going to be, the Vladimir likely banned away here, Orion. It's not
Yep.
just a specific counter pick to Vex, and it will be 4 mid laners overall taken off the table. So an interesting decision here for Goldfish. I would assume that they want to go for their support here, but with the
Yep.
pinched mid lane pool, I wondered if that would have any bearing. I don't think it will.
Well, I mean, yeah, especially when you're looking at the MVP of your team, MVP of Thursday, you would hope that just because they're limiting the kind of the pool that he has available, he still has some champions down there, like towards the fifth or the sixth rank of his like and since priority, and still be able to have a solid impact out of this game. And honestly, that's what you'd probably expect out of Okami in terms of like him having the potential to still perform on champions that aren't necessarily his like top one, two, or three available champions. But we'll have to wait and see what his matchup is going to end up being because DNX will have to show what their mid lane champion is going to be here for Kataso. We saw the
Ooh.
game he had a lot of success with was the Victor. This game is actually going to end up being the Silas here in the mid lane, stealing away the Lilia Drowsy, the Alistar ultimate coming through can definitely provide a lot of utility coming through if he is able to steal some of those ultimate abilities coming through. We'll have to wait and see what Okami actually wants to bring to the table against the Silas.
Some divers and some Bash brothers here for DNX. Graves, Volibear, Silas, and now the Rakan as well. Some long range engage in the Ash. It's kind of similar to the style that we saw out of them in game two, but a little bit different here. They're not turning off the lights. They're not looking for multiple long range engage tools, just looking for some diving potential here. A strong power lane for Panzora up there on the top side, and that is a Kaisa. Okay, mid lane Kaisa here for Okami.
So this is of course the classic Okami pick that he did before Faker. He did play it in game one last week. It really did not go well. And part of that was just their overall draft. Part of it is that there was the nerf coming through for AP Kaisa specifically, making the W quite a bit weaker there. So
Mhm.
it is more of this sort of build with Kaisa, with this new sort of setup where because the strength has been shifted into the queue, you are kind of this more assassin sort of late game pick where eventually once you get a couple items built up, you can kind of ult in and your queue just one shots people
Mhm.
from 100%. I think the other thing that is maybe going through the mind of Goldfish as they draft this pick into a Silas is that Kaisa ult, it's not unusable for Silas, but it's not the highest value of ult. And
Right.
I think that one of the biggest mistakes that teams make when they see Silas already selected by the other team is picking a mid laner whose ult is valuable to steal. So Goldfish not falling into that trap this time.
Yeah, honestly though, I feel like Silas's options are already really good though. Like you
Yeah.
have the potential, like if you like honestly the first choice is probably Alistar or Lilia, depending on like which one you want to go into. Alistar makes you basically unkillable if you're Silas. Lilia's ultimate can basically be procced off of like any of your abilities coming through in terms of like your AoE Q coming through. Like you can basically land a huge sleep coming through if you do land that ability. Also Kai'Sa's ultimate is already AP based in terms of the shield coming through. So, with if Silas can grab that, you can probably get a very hefty shield diving into the back like onto Sivir. Like if Asher lands through or Rakan Charm lands through, so you can very easily gets that Silas into that back line if that were the case. So we'll have to wait and see what Okami's build is going to be because like we talked about, the patch 12.8 did nerf Kai'Sa's W damage. It did
Mhm.
buff Kai'Sa's passive AP damage coming through.
Mhm.
I have been seeing some attack speed AP builds coming through where you basically pop people with just your passive. You don't necessarily rely on your max range W anymore. So I have been seeing that slightly rise up in terms of just sitting back with Ludens and like it's more of the on hit Kraken Slayer Nashor's Tooth build that we kind of would see a little bit when she was primarily in the AD carry position. But
Mhm.
ultimately it's going to be up to Okami to decide what he wants his champion to be built because it is a very magic heavy top side of the map. You have Singe, Lilia, Kaisa, the all AP champions, and really the only AD threat, if it's not Kaisa, will be Sivir. And we've seen Sivir primarily building the lethality, not necessarily the on hit version.
Yeah, and I mean, I would expect that it will be this same lethality Sivir
Yeah.
probably for another instance here. But as we look through the client draft, again, just like game one, they definitely can still trade. But it looks like for the moment, at least, Panzora with the Graves offers a lot better offers good wave clear against the Singe, and definitely kind of offers again that scaling sort of split push option. I will say, though I'm not super well versed on this particular matchup, Singed and the way that Peanut particularly likes to pilot this champion does excel against kind of these marksmen, or sort of these champions where when you can get in their face, it becomes a problem for them. Now, Graves can't necessarily be categorized the same as something like an Ashe, but at the same time, if he does fall behind, it's going to be annoying for him when this Singed is constantly running headlong into him. Same again with the Ashe from Faho as well this time.
Far as I can tell, this is the second time Panzora has piloted the Graves this year, so did have some success on it earlier in the season. Actually, a great carry performance against TA Light in week 7, it looks like. So definitely something that they've tried before. And in general, what do you kind of see here, Orion, in terms of adaptations from DNX here headed into a must-win scenario in Game 4?
Yeah, it seems like they just kind of want to put once again Panzura on like an agency top laner up here, and really, I honestly just want to see a bit better decision making coming through from DNX. Like I really harped on them last game for the fact that they kept opting into so many disadvantageous fights while Panzura was basically just free farming on the top half of the map. And we saw towards the end of the game their team fighting potential and their overall ability to play the game together is definitely very, very solid. But when you put yourself at very outlandish, disadvantageous fights over and over again, and the games become so hard to play. But their composition is more of a balled up composition. They have Silas, Rakan, Volibear that all want to kind of dive forward, and Graves and Ashe just doing as much damage, kind of following up with them. So we will have to see kind of what their composition wants to do. Ultimately, it's going to come really down to execution, because a lot of their like champions can be very squishy and can be very much popped coming through from the Lilia sleep, Alistar combo coming through. So they will have to be, precautious in this game. But at the same time, this is their backs are against the wall, and this is what's going to come down to if it's their last game.
It's going to come down to Game 4. We'll see if DNX can drag us all to that silver scrapes, or if Goldfish Gaming are going to secure the victory and make themselves the CCS champions. We've just got a couple minutes left on the spectator delay, but Game 4 is going to be up next. We are back onto the Rift, everybody, for Game 4, where Goldfish Gaming are one game away from being crowned CCS champions. My name is Lindor, once again here with Orion and Elsa the Queen, and we're going to see if DNX can take us to that all-important Game 5.
Yeah, this looks like a bit of an invade strategy here coming through for DNX here. They want to try to get a bit spicy here. That ward, if they were paying attention on the side of Goldfish, you would have been able to see that ward being placed, which there are a couple things going down. So they definitely know someone placed that ward. They don't know who, but they definitely know that they do kind of have that knowledge. So it just looks like both junglers are kind of backing off their respective bot side buffs of the map, and so far it's just a very standard start for both teams.
And something that is interesting is the vision advantages that I feel like DNX have been able to gain in these level 1s through these little invades. They did find that kill on Lights Genesis in Game 1, but more importantly, it does seem like they've been able to have some map advantages that they've gained through that, and even checking the red buff there from the Ashe to make sure that there's no invade coming through. So lots of information for DNX early, but as the junglers start clearing through these buffs, something that I think is worth paying attention to is Catastol. Yes, the set has good options as far as the ultimates in this game, but something that Goldfish Gaming has done really well all split long is punish melee mid laners in particular, just because of how vulnerable they are to ganks. So, Mossy always gonna spend time around this mid lane, but especially with the Silas, who does have to move up in order to clear the minions, I would expect that that's going to happen early and often. So Shady Gecko did do a good job of shadowing that, especially in the first one, and he'll look to repeat that in Game 4.
Yeah, but it looks
right
now.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to get spotted out on this Raptor Ward. Externian missing the grand entrance there. But yeah, we'll see. Okami definitely has spotted out the Volibear here as he goes for this Raptor invade. Just wondering what the response is going to be from Mozzie, who actually, it looks like had his blue buff leash on him. So this start from Lilia, really not very good. Sitting at about 200 HP, even expended a smite charge and all of his refillables. So Mozzie, very unlucky there, getting the blue buff resetting, and now is not going to be looking too hot at the beginning of this one.
Yeah, and that's pretty rough. You know, definitely as Lilia, you are able to kind of kite the camps together and basically do the Gromp and the blue buff at the same time, which is what he wanted to do, but unfortunately failed the reset like distance there, which does mean that he is basically has to give up his entire top side of the map over to Shady Gecko. But you know, thankfully for him, he is going to be able to take the bot side of the camp. But there's a big wave stacking on the top half of the map, and Volibear is already at the Raptor, the Krug camp.
Ooh, Xernean gonna find a 2-man knock up there, but it's not gonna be too much extra. Shady Gecko looking like he maybe wants to go for a dive here. Flash, Bear Slap, gonna find it. A little bit of damage coming through. Peanut does get the flip back. He will get the trade kill on to the Volibear, but that is first blood into the Wednesday MVP Panzora.
I really, you know, yes, first blood to Panzora, and that is going to be something that DNX can be happy about as Light Nemesis gets pretty chunked out, but I think that also for Goldfish, you're content with that overall, given the you know, blue buff leashing back, and then also for Peanut having the teleport to be able to go and catch the majority of that XP. So nice sidestep.
Yeah, Okami gonna find a nice sidestep onto the second cast of the Ether. Flashing forward, flashes are traded. Okami actually ate a tower shot, and Shady Gecko now is here. No flash on the Volibear, but he is very, very fast. Can Okami get enough distance? The electricity there from the Volibear, not enough to claim the kill.
Oh man, Okami thought he had that extra auto prepared, but his Halo Blades actually was already completely used, and Kai'Sa's early attack speed just isn't there without the Halo Blades coming through, so basically flashes without having that animation prepared. So that does mean that the kill was not able to come through the Catapult. The kill would have been pretty close. I don't know if the passive damage would have been enough, but it definitely would have been definitely down to, if it wasn't going to kill him, it was probably down to like the 10s, maybe even like the lower than 10 HP. But I definitely still think it was worth a try there from Okami if he was able to prepare that animation coming through, as we're seeing Light Genesis trying to hold this mid lane wave, and it's definitely not going to crash all the way through until Okami really gets there. So he'll be able to get most of these minions, if not all of them. And, you know, with the fact that Xernean is in the top half of the map, it's not like Dirt is getting punished here for the boss half of the map for Light Genesis being in mid lane.
Not at all. And, you know, I think that Light Genesis saving a lot of that wave, or at least even some of it, is a big deal here for Okami, because he was forced to back in an unfortunate spot, especially with Catapult bringing the teleport, with Okami instead opting for the barrier. So Shady Gecko being pretty aggressive.
Yeah, Xernean is here. Look at this Catapult roaming up as well. Ignite is down onto Peanut, who doesn't have any summoner spells available, but it looks like Mozzie is just going to get chased off of the majority of his Krugs here. We'll see if the dive onto Peanut will come through. Smokescreen down. Panzora is tanking up the tower. Catapult will grab the kill. Nicely executed dive there from DNX. 2 versus 4 still on this top side. Not sure if they want to go for too much more here. Mozzie and Okami are going to be able to leave, but the 1 kill going over. Peanut getting a little bit picked on here. Panzora not grabbing that kill there, but does grab himself an assist.
Oh, wait, I think, oh, maybe not. Oh, actually, yeah, this looks like a wraparound. I think they want to actually redo this dive once again.
Yeah,
there they go.
This is going to be onto Mozzie. Nice reaction there on the flash. Panzora taking up the tower, has to flash away. Low health bars here for Mozzie and Okami, as that's going to be Catapult going forward. Going to grab one more tower shot. Will not claim it. DNX with their backs against the wall are going to find the redive in the top side. 4 kills to 1 now in this game.
And Peanut's back. I honestly wonder if they would consider doing this one more time. I mean, you know, it's funny. It looks like they're not going to end up going for it. And all series long, it's all about what you can trade on the other side of the map. And, you know, even though Faho is going to find himself pretty far down in CS here, we'll just have to see how impactful that ultimately ends up being here, because he was able to pick up the majority, or if not, you know, mostly all of the XP down there. So winning out on that, pretty big, is DNX, and crucially, it snowballs the side of the map that they need to be strong, setting up Panzora for this split push pressure that can be so deadly to deal with. This time, too, Goldfish does not have the Yone to be able to answer that split push, so it's going to be Peanut having to take care of that one, and DNX is going to accelerate that sort of style so far.
Yeah, and you do get a pretty big trade-off here if you are Goldfish Gaming. Yes, you did lose pretty heavily on the top half of the map, but your AD carry was able to pick up several plates and also go up about, 25 plus CS down there in that bot side of the map. So, ultimately it's kind of one of those situations where, DNX is putting all of their emphasis into Panzora, and Goldfish is like, okay, well, Dirt's our man in this one. And in terms of like respectfully looking at like both players in terms of like the impact that they traditionally have for their teams, you would definitely like to have the gold advantage over to Panzora than what you would like to have on the Dirt. But at the same time, if Dirt steps up and he's the carry that he needs to be for this team, he has the gold advantage. He has it being built up. We will have to see what that does mean for him.
Soul just actually getting headbutt over the wall there, so it was going to be all right. Did steal the Unbreakable Will, and we'll see if this mid lane does come to anything. Mozzie going to land the seed there, but actually bot side Panzora looking to get aggressive. Dirt's going to be the target. Oh, that's a lot of damage, collateral damage, and the Ignite not quite enough. Dirt just barely able to survive there with the On the Hunt and the Flash.
Is able to survive, and it's not kind of the situation from before where oh, Dirt didn't die, but several plates are going over, as we saw on the opposite side. Instead, it's just now starting to push on that, whereas Peanut had some time to pick up some CS, was very far down at the top side.
Tilting Lullaby coming through onto the Ash. Fahu is going to flash over the wall, and now Peanuts has him grounded, has to use the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, is going to use the Exhaust as well, but he's getting flipped over. Is this a 1v1 that Fahu wins? He's ticking away with the poison. As meanwhile, bot side, his team going for the dive. Knocked up in the air is Shady Gecko. Now he's going to turn off the tower. Lights Genesis will be going down. Fahu still looking for the 1v3 kill, is not going to find it. Will get burnt down here. Goldfish able to give the kill to their mid laner. So some more cross-map trading between both these teams. Dirt, he's going to be the next target. He actually trades it back. Shady Gecko biting off more than he can chew. Eats a boomerang to the face. Exerning and Panzora need to finish this one off. They will do it. 4 kills onto Panzora.
Yeah, lots of very questionable things happened there for both teams, honestly. First off, it was Fahu not pathing, like, I guess kiting is a better word, away from Peanut. He actually decided to basically stay in his poison trail the entire time, not kiting closer towards his tower, which was pretty questionable. And then bot side, Alistar's underneath his tower by himself with no one else around him, and then Dirt walks back up to the tower, and Shady Gecko flashes after him with about 150 HP. So, just very questionable things happen from both sides, but in terms of the overall, like, grand reveal of the overall outcome, we get 2 kills for both teams, but a big difference is the tower that got picked up there at the top half of the map, and that's where the big gold difference comes in through. And now we're sitting at 1,000 gold lead here for Goldfish, despite the 3-kill lead here for DNX.
And interesting to see the blue buff being donated, or sorry, red buff being donated here to Panzora. They just want to, give him as much power as they can. And, Dirt might be caught out again as he's clearing out these minions. Does have his ult.
Yeah, has the red buff available here. Is going to be going forward. End of the line is going to be spell shielded. Nicely done there from Dirt. Collateral damage plus Ignite. No, the Ignite is not in this time, so the red buff burn won't be enough. And Panzora can't find the solo kill. Crucial, that spell shield there in that one.
For sure, absolutely. That's probably definitely the only reason why he was able to survive that situation. And, I gotta say, putting your Ashe in a side lane by herself, basically being like the champion to pick up CS, is definitely not particularly common in terms of like lane assignments goes.
Right.
But so far, it's actually, decently working out okay. Ashe is picking up solo XP. She's picking up the ability to kind of like sit here and not really do much. But Peanut might be able to just, well, we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, tower did get a couple of shots. Okay, Fahu's going to be okay. Peanut walking a little bit too deep there. Maybe he wants to go for more, though. He is much faster than this Ashe, trying to run for the hills. Peanut on the chase, but the Beekeeper not quite able to find it there. Yeah, I mean, this is what you're talking about, right, Orion? This is why we don't generally see the Ashe picking up these waves down here.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
yeah,
Ryan.
so, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, honestly, like it just looks so weird to me, like, kind of like how this game's actually, like, I guess, like, continuing going forward. Like, you know, typically it's like, you know, honestly, like, in terms of like overall assignment, Ashe, it definitely is the weakest champion on the map, I would say, in terms of like everyone besides the supports, generally speaking. So I'm very curious how DNX is going to move around this Ashe, but it does look like a pretty big group up here for this actual dragon spawning up.
Almost the collapse coming through there for Goldfish. They're going to start up the dragon here instead, maybe try and force a fight. 10 members around this second dragon here in game 4. This is going to be the fight coming through. Into the backline goes Xernean. Nice knockup coming through. Who's going to be the first to fall? That's going to be the sleep coming through. There's a lot of members going to bed this time. Fahu going down. Mozzie still in the middle of them all. So much work that this Lilia's putting in the fight. It was DNX grabbing the dragon, but they are gonna get wiped here. It is a 13-minute ace here for Goldfish Gaming.
And Zora was so late to the fight. Where was the Graves that entire time? I couldn't see if he maybe got zoned out at the beginning, but when Graves is arriving after multiple members are already chunk low and or dead for DNX, you're not going to have a good time just going into that fight, looking at the gold on both sides of the map. The biggest individual leads are for these MVPs. Okami in the mid lane for Goldfish, and Panzora in the top lane for Goldfish, and DNX's gold just wasn't there to fight with them.
Yeah, and honestly, that was just a massive sleep from Mozzie. I believe it was a 4-man, and you know, I believe the backline of both Panzora and Fahu were the ones that basically took the brunt of that sleep. You know, Panzora did not want to take a lot of damage that Fahu takes, so he basically completely outed himself from that fight, which is why we basically didn't even see him through that fight, because he got pushed all the way to the back of the bush. And yeah, Catasol had the Alistar ultimate. He was actually realistically very, very tanky in that situation, but it just wasn't enough. And now all of a sudden you take that fight, you're down, you lose 5 kills, and now you're down 5,000 gold at the 15-minute marker. Oh, here we go.
You're going to get charmed up, might get knocked into the Aether in a second. Xernean actually trying to go for Okami, but misses the grand entrance, and now going to get turned around. Void Seeker finds the back of the Rakan's head, and it's another kill into the pockets of Goldfish Gaming and into the pockets of Okami, but Enchanted Crystal Arrow into the Everfrost. The root comes through, and they will get the trade back. Big shutdown gold onto Fahu.
Yeah, Fahu is going to get the shutdown gold, and, you know, Goldfish really wanted to go for the Herald on spawn, but now with DNX pushing
Round
through
3.
the mid lane, Minion Wave is going to die, though.
Oh my goodness, they just want to go for it. Shady Gecko looking for the stun. Big knock up from Light's Genesis as he finds the Pulverize onto 3. Catasol looking to do what he can, but he misses the second cast of his E, and now will fall. Fahu on the run, but we all know Peanut wins that one. Mozzie might be the sacrificial lamb. The deer will in fact burn down. Panzora grabs his 5th of the game, but the rest of the team looking worse for wear. Xernean on the run, flipped back into the poison, taken out. It looked so good for DNX for a moment, but Goldfish able to turn it back around. Light's Genesis with a massive knock-up in that fight.
Yeah, and honestly, the fight looked pretty close for a little bit. It was back and forth, and honestly, like in a lot of those cases, but Peanut was able to do so much work with that Singe, basically killing out 2 to 3 members as the fight was progressing with Mozzie and Light Genesis over the top side of the map. And honestly, it's like DNX is definitely a team that is not afraid to take skirmishes over and over again, but honestly, it's like it's just Goldfish winning out every single time.
And the fight does look close, but it's also deceiving because the pick happened on Okami right beforehand. You know, full credit to DNX for making that pick happen, but, you know, in the world where the Kaisa is there to take it over the top for Goldfish, it doesn't seem nearly as close. So unless they can continue to find those advantages prior to these fights, it looks pretty dire for DNX, at least for now. The game is certainly not over. You know, we've seen that Panzora has the ability to stay alive through these fights, and also for Catasol to, on the Silas, will continue to scale, and once he can get onto this backline.
Arrow Xernean's coming with the flash grand entrance. They gift it over to Panzora. The eggs in the Graves basket, baby. It's game 4 in a must-win scenario. Panzora's the man with the gold.
Yeah, and yeah, he's the one, you know, that obviously for DNX here, he is the MVP of Wednesday for a reason. He takes games like these where he basically has all the gold, all the power. Yeah, Peanut getting chased down, but he is singed. He's very fast.
What's the first rule of League of Legends, everybody? Don't chase a singed. I think this Peanut is going to be pretty fine down here in the bot side. Fahu, though, with an interesting Ashe flank here, going to knock off the crown. Mozzie's in. He's going to have the Lilting Lullaby sleep onto 2 members here. TP coming in. Graves looking to join the fray. Mozzie actually not able to find anything onto the back of that. Light Genesis is here, but I don't know if Goldfish, they just look so disorganized. Shady Gecko on the flank. Panzora's into the fray. Fahu cutting this one out well, but Peanut's just running right at him. Light Genesis has the Unbreakable Will, but he will go down. Catasol will claim it, but 2 on the other side as Goldfish find the punch back, and they're not done. Shady Gecko goes down. Catasol is on the run. He's on the wrong side of the rift. Killer Instinct into the queue. See ya later. 4 for 1. Goldfish take it right back.
And off the back of that, they are also going to pick up the dragon. So 2 stacks on the dragon early on as Okami's going to be hunting. Was one of DNX's abilities to threaten this game, but this is going to slow their stacking quite a bit, and it did look really disorganized early on there, Lindor. You are absolutely right, but with their lead, they are able to pull it back, and we can start to see how the passive from this Kai'Sa does hurt once you get some levels in that, once you're able to pick up some items. Is going for this auto attack based approach like Orion kind of predicted, having picked up the Nashor's Tooth.
Yeah, and I would assume that Pickaxe will probably be transitioning into maybe even the Kraken Slayer or the Gale Force in terms of getting that extra initial outright burst damage coming through. We will have to see what his item of choice is going to be. But yeah, it's like the ability to get your passive procced early and have that, like, the ability for, like, the Nashor's Tooth basically gives you that W upgrade evolve, which, yeah, you're not going to do as much outright damage. Like, you're not going to do 800 damage 2 screens away, which honestly was quite ridiculous coming through already. But in terms of, like, just the overall, like, what Kai'Sa is meant to do as a champion, like, before the big W change was to be able to get in fights, blow up a target with someone diving back in with her, but it looks like they're going very aggressive.
Yeah, Catasol might be the target here. Everfrost going to find a nice route. That could be enough disengage, yes. Dodges away from the Swirl Seed there as well. So Goldfish attempting again to find some picks here, but DNX defending well, and Panzora with some time alone on this top side might be able to grab this tower up. No, has to respect the threat of Goldfish's rotation.
One of the differences that we can see in this game, from specifically game 1, where Panzora probably was the most effective in the 1v1 against Peanut, is that this time Peanut has been able to get enough kills. Yes is down in CS, but has enough CS that he can continue to remain competitive. Even if he loses the 1v1 against Graves in particular, he is so useful in these 5v5 fights, just running into the face of the enemy team, as we've seen him zoning off the Ashe time and time again here. So now Goldfish are transitioning over to the top side of the map because the Baron has spawned, and controlling this vision, as far as scaling goes, that's of course something that we've been talking about all 3 games, is always very, very relevant. I don't feel like, and I'm curious your opinion too, Orion, I don't feel like the scaling is nearly there for DNX like it was last game.
Yeah, I think so. This Baron is actually very, very quick with both Kai'Sa and Sivir, and it does look like the members are coming. The AE does come through Hawkshot as reveal, but can you get through Ashe and Singe though?
The enchantment control. Catasol TPing into the
stole
fight. It's stolen! Oh my goodness! Go now, the fight comes through. Can they win it? Peanut still standing tall. Mozzie still alive. It's going to be Alistair falling. Xernean and Fahu will follow suit. Mozzie is going to go golden for a moment. Gecko falls. Catasol falls. Panzora will be the last. It's a triple kill for Peanut. They stole the Baron, but they all go down. They're all seeing gray. And Goldfish might be looking to push for an inhibitor here. 20-second death timers on the side of DNX. Oh my goodness, what a fight in Game 4.
And I think that Goldfish, they know here that they're not going to look to end the game. They don't have that much, but they are looking to maximize what they can get off of these death timers. Multiple members coming up right now, so it is going to be pretty close. They're going to have to run right out of here, but nice job putting down the sticky goo by Peanut to disengage, and that is going to be, you know, another gold swing in the favor of Goldfish Gaming. Imagine if they had gotten the Baron, it would just be that much worse.
Yeah, and honestly, I would have loved to see the damage graphic, specifically Peanut's damage in that fight. Yes, he's playing Singe. All he has to do is activate his little poison trail, but I'm pretty sure his poison trail outright killed Fahu and Panzora towards the end of that fight, just from the initial poison trail that he ended up leaving behind. I'm pretty sure, like, Fahu, he tried to enter the fight with everyone else because basically it was Volibear and it was Xernean just diving into that Baron just outright, and you know, Shady Gecko stole it away, which was massive for them. But no one else was able to even participate in the fight because of Peanuts, like just overall poison trail. He's got Demonic Embrace. He has the Riley's Crystal Scepter, and he actually does a surprising amount of damage.
There is a reason this singed his permaband against Peanut, as this might be the go button here once again. Lights Genesis finds a knock-up killer instinct to Kathy and Rain. See ya later, Volibear. Xernean now is on the run, should be able to evacuate Grand Entrance as an exit there. Will he get a little bit of poke damage down from Okami as, ooh, that Void Seeker looking very dangerous. That's going to be the Lilting Lullaby. Mozzie trying to go forward, not going to be in range for the Hello Eep, but the map belongs to Goldfish Gaming. Yes, Panzora is 6, 2, and 5. Yes, he has 2.5 items on this Graves, but I don't know if it's enough here. Goldfish Gaming looking to close this series out here.
And someone who I want to shout out in this game for Goldfish, you know, who doesn't normally get as much attention, is going to be Dirt212 on the Sivir, who, yes, he did get those free advantages early on. Nice spell shield, by the way, but he has used it to great effect.
Panzora is going to be all right. Does have to flash away, but is going to get away before that knockup comes through. Mozzie going to pick up this dragon here pretty easily. Seems like Goldfish, they're getting to the point here where they're feeling like they're just crossing their T's and dotting their I's. They can taste the CCS championship. They can taste victory in this game. They just need one more fight to finish it off here. 23-11, 9k gold lead. They're working up towards this Ocean Soul, and it's going to mean one more fight before they can claim their victory.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked about this Goldfish Gaming team for a long time now this season, especially like kind of the conversation around both Wednesday and Thursday about how, okay, Wednesday's group is just much better than Thursday's, and you know, it's not, the grand finals is not going to be that close. It's going to be a Wednesday winner, but you know, Goldfish has definitely shown why they have not dropped a single series up at all, basically. Yes, they've dropped their games, they've dropped their fair share, which Base Check actually did a lot of damage, but not a whole lot. TP is coming through, though.
Yeah, Catasoul wanting to join here. Panzora and Shady Gecko are in the fray. Lights Genesis is just going to stun up right out of that, and now Panzora is going to be the target. Okami's got the killer instinct into the backside, is going to be able to finish that one off with the Gale Force, with the Graves off the map. That's the main power point here for DNX, not available. Peanut and the rest of Goldfish looking to maybe get some push down here in the top side. They've already broken up in the inhibitor in the mid lane. It's time to work on a couple of these other lanes.
You can feel the tension building right now. Goldfish pushing in these waves. They want to finish this one off, but they know that they cannot risk losing a team fight to DNX and letting them back into this game. You're going to see these start to crash, and it's just going to be a moment here, and then Lights Genesis, I would assume, is going to hit the go button. We'll see when they decide to do it, or if they just want to take the inhib.
Panzora did just spawn. Might be it. Panzora looking for it, or rather Mozzie is going to find a triple sleep once again. Shady Gecko and Catasoul are dead before the fight even starts. Goldfish Gaming, like you say, Elsa, they hit the go button and they just don't stop. Xernean is the last one alive here for DNX. Dirt will fall to the tower. Goldfish Gaming sacrificed their bot lane, but I'll trade my bot lane for a CCS championship any day of the week. Goldfish Gaming here in Game 4. They're going to take out the Nexus, and they will be crowned your 2022 Spring CCS champion.
Just gotta wait a couple more seconds till this Nexus does end up falling, kind of playing with their food there at the Nexus Nexus Fountain there if you are Goldfish Gaming. And yes, congratulations to Goldfish Gaming outright winning a 3-1 series here against DNX. And honestly, like really big kudos to them, especially after, game one where it was basically DNX completely controlling that game all the way through. And we kind of talked about a little bit how it was going to be, potentially like them losing out those first couple of games, but then they're going to catch their footing. They're going to get the momentum back in and they're going to take the series kind of by storm, which is exactly what they did. But they did it a game sooner here in this one. So definitely congratulations here to Goldfish Gaming.
Yeah, Goldfish Gaming, so exciting to be able to see them come back for their second split here in the CCS, just missing the playoffs in their first run, and the amount of improvement they were able to show coming back with these new additions to the roster in Lights Genesis, in Peanut, and building on the original foundation that they did have. It's just so fun to watch. It is really, really incredible, the growth that we've seen from these players, and I mean, I'm kind of speechless right now. It's just been such an amazing season. I'm psyched.
Well, I've got something for you to talk about, Elsa, because first of all, huge congratulations to Goldfish Gaming for that victory. Well deserved. They are the CCS champs. But we have one more little order of business to do here before we maybe grab an interview. We need a finals MVP. I've got two color casters here, which means we can't get this wrong. So what do you guys think? Who we got here for the series MVP of the grand finals?
Ryan, you go first.
Oh wow! Of course,
Yeah.
you throw me in there, even though you're supposed to be the Thursday aficionado here. For
Well, you
Elsa.
can name someone for DNX if you want. I mean, no one's stopping you.
Why would I give it to DNX?
I don't know, but
Goldfish was definitely the better team on today's game. So for 100%, and honestly, really huge credit to basically everyone on DNX's squad. I think everyone basically stood up. And not stood up, but they kind of stood their ground against the DNX coming into it. And yeah, they had a pretty rough game one. They pushed that one aside. They cruised through those three games. And honestly, I felt like the player that was going into it, the kind of the most, I would say, with the most confidence or the most capabilities that we thought was going to perform, definitely performed all 4 games here for DNX. And my MVP almost certainly has to go to Okami. I think the guy was definitely a monster in this series. He definitely was one of the more pivotal members of his team. Even in their loss to game one, he was still continuously making plays over and over again. And, unfortunately, they weren't able to win that one. But even after that game, the guy was still, he was a monster on Yone every single game. Even this
Vladimir.
The Vladimir too.
Vladimir
That guy, he was like 1v4ing backline over
Mhm.
and over again. Like the guy was just a monster. Like there's a reason why he was probably considered one of, if not the best player in the entirety of the CCS and the MVP of Thursday.
For me, I think Okami definitely, he had a poetic series in many ways. I just feel like it was really a microcosm of the whole rest of the split and kind of how he was able to perform. And I think being able to finish it out too on the Kaisa, being that last pick is, probably particularly nice for him. But I'm gonna go a little bit of a different direction. I'm gonna say that Lights Genesis in many ways was my best player of the series. I think that he really tends to push this team as far as, getting those roams off and making plays happen. But it was especially apparent in this series, game one, the one time Goldfish did fall. One of the biggest things that we noticed is that Light Genesis was locked down into that bot lane, wasn't able to roam and make things happen. Once he was unlocked, it was a totally different story. And, even bringing out a pick that we haven't seen very much from him so far in the Recon. So I'm going to give it to Lights Genesis of the MVP of the grand finals. Really impressed with his play and fun stuff to see.
All right. Well, I guess I have to break the tie then. Thanks a lot, guys. No, I think
we can
great
make
points.
It a 3-way tie.
I think ultimately, I think Lights Genesis gets it. I think that Okami is well deserving of the regular season Thursday MVP. Absolutely. I think he performed well in this game, but I think that Elsa's absolutely right. In those games where Lights was unlocked, where he was able to repeat gank the mid lane, he was the catalyst to get Okami ahead in some of these games. And without him doing that in game one, Okami, I mean, maybe it was a little bit more their team composition, but he didn't have as much of an effect on that one. So I will give it to Lights Genesis. I think that makes it decided. He's going to be our finals MVP. So congratulations to him. We are going to grab maybe one, maybe more Goldfish members for an interview here in just a moment. But give us 1 second to set that one up, and we'll be right back with a couple victorious Goldfish members.
And he shall smite the wicked and plunge them into the fiery pit.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
Want to see me run to that mountain and back? You want to see me do it again?
Prepare for trouble!
Make it double!
To protect the world from devastation.
To unite all peoples within our nation.
Brain freeze. Ever get that?
Hababa, hababadagada, hababadadaba, hatabadagadaga, hatada.
Don't fuck with me! I have the power of God and anime on my side! Wait,
Like snorting Scooby Snacks was a good idea, Scoob.
Nothing is free. If you want to be successful, you have to pay the price.
I am the Grinch, and I hate Christmas.
Which pretty much means you're trash.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Lindor, here with Elsa the Queen and Orion, and we are currently joined by 4 of the 5 members of the victorious Goldfish Gamers. We've got Peanut, Mozzie, Okami, as well as Lights Genesis, and a guest appearance of their coach. So thank you guys for joining us here today.
For sure.
First and foremost, congratulations on that win. You're the CCS champions. I won't throw this to anyone in particular. Whoever wants to answer, how does it feel being victorious here?
Peanut, what do you think? You can take this one.
It's honestly an interesting experience because I've never had any prior knowledge of well, not that I didn't know of esports or anything, but I've never actively participated in it prior to this. So to finally come into it with instantly a smashing success, it feels pretty good.
Yeah, and Peanut, you were obviously instrumental in this going against the MVP in Panzora. So I did want to ask you about that because I know you probably want to get to bed pretty soon. But I did want to ask you, Peanut, what your thoughts are on Panzora as a player. I mean, he did seem like he had a pretty strong series overall, but, obviously you have very differing play styles. So, what's kind of your opinion of him as far as how good you think he really is and kind of your rating yourself against Panzora as a top laner?
I can definitely say with confidence that he is better than majority of the other top laners that we have gone against, because mainly they pick these carry champions, but they can't fulfill that role. Panzora can pick a carry champion, but it's kind of like you said, it's the opposite play styles. But for the same regard, they haven't also fought a semi decent top laner because they just run over everyone they fought.
Right.
Yeah, no, that is true. It's kind of going back, I guess, the beginning of the regular season of the split. We kind of talked about how you guys were basically kind of the coin flip team of CCS. At least that's what Flay said all the time about you guys coming into it. And unfortunately, I wasn't a part of the CCS casting team last split, so I didn't really get to watch you guys play. But going into this split, I was actually a pretty big proponent of you guys going into lock and saying, hey, I think this team can be really, really good. It's definitely a team to really watch out for in Thursday's group. And I kind of got laughed at by Flay originally. So, how does it feel for you guys to basically say haha to Flay and that he's basically the one on the wrong foot, that he's the one looking stupid and that you guys are CCS champions?
Go ahead, Okami. Go ahead.
Yeah. For me personally, playing last season, obviously the community aspect was really fun, and we had a big fan base because Goldfish was fun to watch because we coin flip games and it was exciting. And so ranking up our roster and doing the preseason grind and all that, and then coming into this next season knowing that we're a different team, and then just screen capping every single one of Flay's messages and just seeing him be like goldfish choke, goldfish, chokefish, whatever he said, they're about to get flushed, and then just watching him be proved wrong every single time just makes it so much more enjoyable.
I have a question kind of along the same lines because, Mozzie, this one's for you. I remember earlier on in the split, I don't know if it was week 2, week 3, or what, but you released an article, a power rankings of all of the teams, and you boldly, at the time, put yourselves at the top of the Thursday and said there is no other team in the CCS who can play at the same level as us. And now, having proven that with the 5 players that you have here today, how does that feel to have made that confident call out early on in the split and be able to carry it through to the end?
So obviously it feels great. I had a lot of confidence in my team, and we had our own struggles. Not super publicly as a team, but everyone had to put in a lot of work, and I'm just so proud of everyone coming together. Unfortunately, I was gonna give big shout out to Dirt here, but Dirt is laying down right now. He's not feeling too well, but big shout out to him for playing through the series. Overall though, it just feels incredibly validating. It feels fantastic just to show everyone that no, I'm not crazy. I was always saying it's Hard Hat and it's DNX, and these are the teams I think are good. I actually going all the way back to lock-in, when we were making our prep for lock-in, I thought DNX looked like one of the scariest teams, if not the scariest. So they didn't perform super well, and we didn't perform super well in lock-in, but at the end of the season, things kind of shaked out the way I thought they would.
Yeah, and Mossy, keeping it with you for a second, just in terms of talking about kind of having that sort of mental fortitude when others don't necessarily believe in you. And in the last game, we saw at the Baron pit there, got to bring it up. We saw the Baron being stolen away. Kind of very, very different situations in life, I guess, but similar thing of kind of having that communication, having that resilience. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, that moment and how kind of overall as a team you maintain the mental fortitude that you have.
Well, obviously, even though the Baron didn't go our way, we still won the fight. We still, had a lot of confidence that we were ahead, and everyone was just trusting each other to, fulfill their responsibilities. That's something we've talked a lot about this season. Way back to when it started. You just got to trust your teammates. And at the end of the day, it's there was a few plays in this series that didn't really go our way, but at the end of I never lost faith in my team that they would, that we were just a better 5 basically. So we lose game 1, doesn't really matter. I mean, we almost got knocked out in the conference finals. Horizon showed up, and that was that was scary enough. So I think nothing really phased me throughout that entire series. There were certain plays. I'll have to release some of the voice comms. There was a couple silly moments and a bit of frustration and all that. Like that stuff's just always going to happen. As competitors, everyone's competitive and everyone wants to win. But yeah, we weren't even really all that worried, and honestly, it felt kind of anticlimactic. I going back to it now in my head, it feels like Horizon Gaming was the real finals. And I have to say, now that I've actually, now that we've actually won the league, I already said this in Trash Talk. I said it in Twitch chat. I'll say it one more time. Wednesday was the true Mickey Mouse League. We scrimmed DNX like 2 weeks ago, and we 3-0'd them. Like, it felt like they were trolling us. And so we weren't sure if they're actually that bad. Turns out they were. Thank God Thursday is a stronger conference, and thank God we get to play in that conference. Not sure we would have been able to win here otherwise.
There you go. Going into it a little bit, we talked about one of the talking points for, I guess, on our production was this is more or less a common talking point. We brought up your most common play champion in solo queue, the Vladimir, was also being I think it was a 43% win rate champion for you in solo queue specifically. Is that something that you more or less, like, I guess in a way, sandbag? So it's like teams like less likely to ban it because you popped off basically in that game, basically taking fights like that were pretty much 1v4s throughout some of that game. And the DNX drafted a very much a DNX composition. They had like 4 champions where they turn off the lights, they shoot all of their ultimates, and it's very hard to dive into a Vladimir like in that situation, because not only will he do just as much damage to you, but he can take all the damage that you do, heal it up, and deal just as much damage back to you. So is that something that you kind of had prepared, or was this something that you just like feel super confident in picking?
So that was the first time we played Vladimir in an official match. So that was the Bloodlord premiere, as it were.
We scrimmed it.
No,
we scrimmed it like once,
CCS
like a
match.
month ago or two.
Yeah.
It was
But
kind of.
For the most part, I struggle to climb in solo queue because I cannot get myself to play more than or less than 3 champions, and so I just like swap champions every other day. And this leads to me having a wide champion pool, but also not like mastering any one champion. So one thing we did this split was like honing my champion pool. But our coach at one point, Zed, said, Vladimir's strong right now, we should learn Vladimir. And like that was like all I needed to just like go drop 100 games on Vladimir. But little did I know that champion is laced with cocaine, and I could not stop playing him, even though I was bad. And I just spiraled. I think I hit as low as like a 31% win rate over like 150 games. But eventually, but eventually I figured him out, and once you're confident on that champion, he looks extremely oppressive. And so I saw the Nocturne and I saw the Vex, and I was like, oh, well, neither of these champions can interact with Vladimir. It's an angle, like, he just runs this game over, so.
Elsa, do you have any other last questions here? Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just, moving forward, I suppose, I feel like Lights Genesis, I do want to shed a little bit of light on you because we have not heard from you yet. And I don't know if you were listening, but you did get the prestigious honor of being named the MVP of the series based on myself and Lindor. You don't have Orion to thank for that, unfortunately. But, being the MVP of this series with the team, obviously you'll be moving forward after this to Amateur Worlds. I just wonder... kind of what are your general impressions of the opportunity to participate in that event, and what you kind of anticipate from your team stacking up against the champions of other leagues?
Yeah, so first off, I want to say, y'all are trolling. I think I played by far the worst today. I think all 4 of my teammates absolutely smurfed and played way better than me. So,
Don't lie.
Besides that, I think it'll be fun. I think you'll see a lot of teams for the first time that you don't know anything about. So, like, if it's a best of 1 format, it might be like really volatile. But if it's best of 3s, I think we'll have a major advantage in coaching to really make some adjustments and really go into like learn teams. And maybe they don't learn from us, or we'll show a different side that they won't see coming. And I think that's the format's really going to be kind of a big deal on what it's going to be. I don't know. I haven't looked up Amateur Worlds. I don't even know if we know that information yet.
I don't know that information.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think we had that information either, but I would assume, based off of like most Worlds formats, like you have the initial group group draw, which is like a best of 1. And then once you make it if you make it past that, that's when it's typically a best of 3 or best of 5, which, like we said, we don't necessarily have that much information, but hopefully you guys do end up representing CCS very well. Obviously you guys didn't even drop a series the entire way through. And, one of my talking points was like, you guys it didn't really feel like you guys were hardly ever challenged in a way going from Thursday's group. It felt like it was always just like you guys dominated week after week. And going into grand finals, I was like, if this team doesn't get challenged, like Wednesday's group can definitely, because Wednesday is basically kind of had like that 3 or 4 teams that kind of challenged each other at the top of the group. It was basically just you guys, and then maybe Shadow Z, maybe Horizon in the regular season.
Horizon definitely.
Shadows was
Shadows was the most overrated team by far. They are not a top 3 team.
We were extremely lucky to get out of the original Horizon series with the 2-1. That shouldn't have gone the way it did, and honestly, like, we were lucky to get past them again. They were a fantastic team, even despite all the roster changes. So I just want to put that out there to give them their credit.
I think it's TDR and Horizon that pushed us at all in Thursday.
Love those call outs. All right, y'all. Well, I think we're pretty much ready to wrap it up here for the night. Congratulations again on the win.
Are we able to do some call outs before we go?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I do want to give you the opportunity here to shout out anyone that may be watching or anything that you want to here.
Yeah, can we just go down the line then if people have individual call outs or whatever? I guess we can start with Greg and then Okami, then Peanut, and then James.
Yeah, I mean, just shout out to everyone on the team. I think especially Mossy and James. They put by far way more effort than the rest of us combined on this. So, most of the credit should go to them.
Yeah, I have a battalion behind me. Shout out to the Okami family. You make it so much more enjoyable to play. Knowing you guys are watching, coming out and talking to you guys afterwards is so enjoyable. I'm specifically looking forward to putting the poster my sister Lauren made on my wall. That is the sickest thing I've ever seen.
Been wonderful. In particular, I'd like to thank our 2 newer players, Greg and Peanut, for being with us. I know we've had our ups and downs, but we could not have done it without either of you. Y'all did wonderfully.
Peanut?
If I ever have to play Gragas top constantly again, you have no idea.
World's got some bad news for you.
You have no idea what this man did to me. I never want to see a cask in my vicinity, ever.
Hey, if you're buying, I'm in.
Peanut will drink them under the table because he's in Gragas prison.
The bomba.
Yeah. Any shout outs or call outs
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Then I'll go. I have a list of people. I'll try and keep it short. These are people who I'll just start us off. Shout out to anyone who read and interacted with the content I made this season in CCS. That includes a lot of the staff and a lot of the other captains. Shout out to basically all the fans. I have a couple of people in mind here. I've just seen Elsa the Queen, R Pike, Classy Lady. I've seen you in the Twitch chat. Ludacris, Exernian, Dr. Phil and Chill, Bravo, Aquatic Bear, TDR Matt, Kaiser. We've got Kiara, my personal friend, watching a bunch of the games. Basically Okami's whole family, James's whole family. I know you guys are watching as well. And then I can't, of course, shout out to Greg, Dirt, Okami, the Nut, and our coach James with me, as well as Zed and our team manager Mookie. That is everyone I have, shout outs for. So thank you guys so much for the support.
Also, Kaiser Mom.
Yep.
Shout out to Kaiser Mom.
Okay, Kaiser's mom as well. Yeah, thank you guys all so much for the support. It's been an amazing run, and hopefully we can do well in and Daydream, I guess. And hopefully we can do well in Amateur Worlds. Thank you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate the humility there, and congratulations again on the win there. I can see Elsa here getting a little bit emotional hearing from you guys and as the split comes to an end. So we love to hear that. It's all it feels good around here, especially if you are a Goldfish gamer. The CCS Spring Split champions here. So congratulations to you guys. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Goldfish Gaming, to DNX, to all the teams in the CCS who competed this year, to all the staff, all the admins, all the casters, all the producers, everyone who has made this league something special this year. Huge shout out to Brankles for the fantastic content. I know everyone loves seeing that around here. There he is in the chat. And huge shout out to everyone who came out to watch, everyone who came in Twitch chat and gave us their support, gave the teams their support, and made this league what it has been here this year. We're really looking forward to the summer and what we can do here in the future. So one more big shout out here to Goldfish Gaming. Congratulations, you guys, for being the CCS champions. And otherwise, we'll catch you guys next time for the some more CCS. We'll see y'all in summer.